This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate first part of what if Naruto turned evil because of villagers' harsh treatment. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Take this, you piece of shit. A grown man kicked the young boy, causing a sharp pain in his side. Another adult shouted intoxicatedly, "She died because of you," as he slammed his nearly empty clay sake bottle down on the child, breaking it as it struck the balled-up child on the floor. A third vile villager from the village hidden in the leaves kicked the boy, saying, "My son gave his life to make sure you died, and yet here you are still breathing." With tears streaming down his face in pain, the blond boy closed his eyes. "Why don't you kill them?" The boy could hear the voice, but it was hardly more than a whisper in his ear every time he was cornered like this. It was there, questioning why he didn't fight back or retaliate. If he could, he would. If he were to be honest with himself, these beatings were frequent and on the verge of becoming customary every day. One of the many men who gathered to vent their frustrations spat, "I'm surprised he hasn't killed himself, yet no one in this entire village gives two shits about you. No one will ever love you." Kill himself? He had made several attempts at that. It was never successful. A few days after attempting to jump from the village's tallest cliff, the boy ended up in the hospital despite his attempts to cut himself. His wounds always healed. He even tried eating rat poison, but for a few hours he had terrible diarrhea. They fear you. They fear your power, strength. There was no power in him. Would he not be aware of it if he did? If he had power, wouldn't the old man have told him? "You've been lied to. You have the greatest power at your fingertips." Had he been misled? "Yes, now release me, and I'll give you the power to get revenge." Retaliation. Did he seek retribution? The boy considered the challenge of obtaining food. How Hokage, the elderly man, would make grocers and tailors give him clothes and other necessities. The beatings and the looks, the insulting remarks and name-calling, were those the things for which someone sought retribution? "They are humans, always seek revenge. I can give it to you, but you have to release me." How was a voice in his head to be let out? Perhaps he was as insane as the locals claimed. "Open your eyes and you will see how to release me." The tone of the voice was urgent, even excited. The child slowly rose from his balled-up position, opening his eyes and flinching. He was in some sort of sewer in front of a huge gate and two of the most malevolent eyes he had ever seen, rather than a crowd of irate, inebriated villagers. From beneath the gate, a red aura gathered around the boy's feet before pushing him up to the talisman that kept the enormous gates closed. It started to enclose the lower portion of his body. "Remove it!" The voice yelled at the young boy for delaying taking off the seal. All the boy did was gaze at it before reaching for a corner of the talisman and starting to tear it. He took a moment to gaze at the enormous eyes adrift in the sea of darkness. Foolish human. Uzumaki Naruto's eyes popped open and he gasped. He checked his watch and saw that it was 7:30. He said in a frustrated voice, "Damn it, I'm going to be late," and tossed his covers aside, causing the black fox that was sleeping at the foot of his bed to yip at him. "Not today, kid, I'm late." After quickly putting on his orange jumpsuit and grabbing some bread, Naruto hurried out the door, leaving the fox to take care of his apartment. Naruto disregarded every remark made to him as he dashed through the awake village in the direction of the ninja academy. They were always the same comments, so he had long since learned how to ignore them. The villagers had hated him for as long as he could remember. Everybody had a unique glare set aside for him, regardless of what he was doing. It wasn't until he was older that the beatings began. The Hokage moved Naruto into an apartment to shield him from any potential harm that the staff of the orphanage might inflict on him. Naruto kept running in the direction of the academy. The worst day for him to be late was today. His entire career as a ninja depended on the results of the Genin graduation exams, which were held today. Everything depended on the outcomes of those tests. Checking his watch, he pulled his wrist in front of him. He had 5 minutes to arrive, or else he wouldn't be allowed to take the test at all. Naruto forced himself to run even faster, taking a deep breath and letting it out. The young ninja hopeful used all of his remaining strength to make it to the classroom. As the academy came into view without even apologizing, he rushed through the hallways, shoving students and teachers aside. When he finally arrived at his class, he threw open the door, shocking the 2 teachers and the other 26 Genin hopefuls. Chunin Academy instructor Amino Iruka, irritated by Naruto's tardiness, said, "Well, Naruto, it's nice to see you join us. I hope you actually have a legitimate excuse today, or did the Hokage monument decide to paint itself on its own again?" His previous justification for avoiding punishment for damaging the monument was ridiculed by the entire class. "Take your seat and we can begin passing out the written portion of the exams." Without responding, Naruto paused to catch his breath before making his way to the vacant backseat. Before they could start, the test was distributed and their time limit was announced. The Genin to be was given 30 minutes before the start of their practical exam after an hour and 30 minutes of rigorous test taking. Inuzuka Kiba visited Naruto's desk as the students stood up to go to the bathroom or grab food from the cafeteria. I don't know why you bothered showing up. Loser, there's no way in hell that you're going to pass. Naruto snorted slightly as he gazed languidly up at the Inuzuka heir. Kiba's abilities and grades were mediocre. The Inuzuka, his clan, were known for using nin dogs for tracking missions, and there were rumors that they could partially change into dogs to improve their senses. Long ago, Naruto had attempted to become friends with the boy. Without even giving the Inuzuka another look, the blonde ninja hopeful got up and made his way to the door, saying, "Whatever." The dismissal from Naruto caused Kiba's eye to twitch. "Hey, I'm not done talking to you, Uzumaki. I don't even know what you're doing trying to become a ninja. It's not like anyone would even give you a mission, let alone want to be on the same team as you. You're a dead last that would just get your team killed on the first mission." About halfway through the door, Naruto had stopped. All of the other students looked at the blonde, waiting for a fight to start, to see what he would do. "TCH, Naruto said, his hands clenched around the door as he decided to leave the classroom. Kiba shouted, "I knew you were too chicken to face me," as Naruto strode off. Kiba swiftly turned around and scolded whoever had the audacity to call him pathetic. "You're pathetic, Kiba." Kiba said the black abysses that were Uchiha Sasuke's eyes, his present crush, and, presumably, his future wife, confronted him. Kiba flushed and swallowed his bark. "Sasuke-chan," he said. Following Naruto's example, the dark-haired beauty went to get some refreshments prior to the practical exam. "You call Naruto a loser, yet you yourself are barely passing. I wouldn't worry about Naruto graduating if I were you, loser," she said. It would have been an understatement to say that Kiba was devastated. After the excitement subsided, the remaining pupils went to use their limited time to eat and use the restroom. Sasuke had no interest in Naruto. If she were to be honest with herself, he glared at almost everything that moved and was always by himself. She had no idea why she had bothered to speak to Kiba. She hadn't even been bothered to go on a date with the disgusting Inuzuka yet today. Sasuke couldn't understand the mystery of the blonde Uzumaki. Naruto frequently wore a frown and offered flimsy justifications for arriving late to class. He barely passed every test that was given to him and submitted homework that was only partially completed. However, he could easily be considered the class's best in taijutsu, ninjutsu, and even weapons. When Sasuke first saw the blonde practicing, he was astounded by how accurately he could throw the shuriken and kunai. He hadn't failed to hit anything. Not only was he accurate, but the weapon's level of embedding in the wooden dummies was also impressive. When they had to complete the same task for a graded test earlier that day, it was entirely different. Naruto had only been able to land one blow, and it was by no means a fatal blow. Sasuke was amazed at how hard he pushed himself because he had only seen him practice a few times before. Apart from the clone jutsu, it was evident that he understood the three fundamental academy jutsu. But Sasuke never asked the blonde why he was purposefully failing. It was his problem, not hers. If he wished to be perceived as weak, she saw it as a challenge to outperform him. More or less, Sasuke would not allow anyone to surpass her. Her clan name forbade anyone from surpassing her. Whether or not he was concealing his abilities was irrelevant. Sasuke's back was glared at by Hyuga Hinata. 40 minutes had passed since the genin was summoned back for the exam's practical section. Since they were to be tested one at a time, each student had been called to a separate room. Hinata had been glaring at Sasuke during this time since she hadn't been called in yet. She had a strong desire to correct Kiba's perception of Naruto. Sasuke then outdid her. Hinata wanted to be the one to defend Naruto, even though she was obviously having trouble speaking in any meaningful way to begin with. Sasuke and Hinata weren't exactly pals. They were completely different from one another. Hinata was timid and meek, whereas Sasuke was confident and assertive. Since they were all very young, the only reason they hung out together was because they were friends with Sakura and Ino. Their moms were also childhood friends. They were referred to as the Princess Four by their classmates. Given that Sasuke and Hinata were from two of the biggest clans in the village, it was obvious to them why. Since Sakura came from a family full of civilian merchants and Ino came from a small ninja family, they were only included for their appearance. Several boys who had actually worked up the nerve to ask them out frequently did so, but they were always rejected. Although Hinata felt sorry for them, she was appreciative that Sasuke, Sakura, and Ino were aware that she had her sights set on a particular blonde and responded on her behalf naturally. She always felt sorry for people who were lusting for Sasuke, but she would either walk away from them or simply tell them to stop it before they could even finish their approach to asking her out. Despite his popularity, Sasuke wasn't very outgoing since her family had been murdered. Sasuke had never given much thought to what other people thought of her. The girl's attention was almost entirely on training and being the best in the class. Although Hinata was aware that she shouldn't be angry because Sasuke had put Kiba in his proper place, the violet-haired girl couldn't help but feel as though Sasuke was intruding on her territory. Iruka called the next student to be tested after returning from the most recent one, Uzumaki Naruto. As he stalked out of the classroom, Hinata aimed her light gray eyes at the target of her obsession. The boy with the blonde hair had always been admired by Hinata. For no apparent reason, he was disliked by everyone in the village. She had seen him in the town square numerous times as people threw rocks or rotten food at him and cursed at him, but he tried his best to ignore them as he went to his destination. When he didn't understand a subject that Iruka-sensei had been teaching, he spent a lot of time at the library and trained every day after class, knowing that people would mock him for being a coward. He even made the decision to leave fights. Hinata wished she had the strength he did to continue because she could see how much strength it took for him to simply get out of bed each morning. Being a member of the Hyuga clan, one of Konoha's most prominent clans, came with a lot of responsibility. When Hinata grew old enough, she would inherit her father's position as the clan's head. Her father expected nothing less than perfection and was always pressuring her to achieve high grades. She simply couldn't attain perfection if she were honest with her father. She would tell him that she didn't want to be a ninja because she could never learn new jutsu on her first try. Her younger sister, who was everything her father wished her to be, was nothing like her. Hinata occasionally thought her father hated her, and she couldn't help but hate him in return. Iruka called her name, Hyuga Hinata, and Hinata's head jerked up silently, hoping Naruto had passed. She hurriedly got up and followed Iruka into the next room for her test. "Iruka, Naruto is more than qualified to pass," said Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage, looking around at the academy students who were jubilant after passing and becoming genin. In front of the academy stood the Hokage, Iruka, and all the students who were celebrating. Everyone, with the exception of Naruto, was celebrating. "I'm sorry Hokage-sama, but I just don't feel right in letting him become a ninja. None of his work even began to match the others, and his grades have been pitiful since he started here, and not to mention there's that to consider as well. He's more than likely to kill his team just as much as an enemy if he were to lose control. He's too dangerous to become a ninja," Iruka said with a stern tone as he mentioned the blonde pupil of his. The elderly Hokage let out a sigh. Iruka wasn't alone in feeling this way, and he was starting to worry about how it was affecting Naruto. "Iruka, you need to remember that Naruto is a boy as well, and above all else a human. Yes, he does have that, but it doesn't remove his emotions. All his life he has felt hatred and a bias that has deprived him of some of life's most basic needs. I can only imagine the hatred he has for this village, for how it has treated him over the course of his life, a hatred that it would be more than happy to use to control him." As he considered what the Hokage had told him, Iruka froze. Could it really take advantage of Naruto's animosity to get away? Iruka had always seen that monster and his parents' mangled bodies. Whenever he looked at the 12-year-old, Iruka saw Naruto sitting on a swing under a tree, his features obscured by the shade, making it hard to read the boy. He has always hated this village. Hokage-sama, he holds no respect for anyone. He gets into fights and causes trouble whenever he can. For all we know, he was a bad seed to begin with, Iruka said. "Perhaps, but you must consider that Naruto has never known love nor the comfort of a mother's hug or the pride from a father's acceptance. You understand his loss of parents, but what you fail to understand is his frustration at never being accepted and the pain that comes with it. He may not hold respect, get into fights, and cause trouble, but it's only because he wants attention and doesn't know how else to get it when no one will even accept that he is his own being, and not that the Yondaime wanted him to be seen as a hero. Iruka, not a monster." With his words of peace, the Hokage left the young Chunin to reflect. Iruka just gazed at Naruto, who had risen and started to walk off the academy grounds. He was clearly disappointed, and he could see it. The boy had taken Mizuki and Naruto by surprise when he had arrived for his practical exam. He had performed as well as, if not better than, Uchiha Sasuke in his spar test. Unlike all the other times he had performed in class, his transformation and replacement jutsu had been flawless. And he scored a perfect 100 on his written exam. Sasuke and the Haruno girl were the only two people who had scored as high as he had. Although his genjutsu was impressive, not everyone was skilled in those methods. He had succeeded in casting a light one that caused enough rifts for him to ambush the proctor and pretend to kill him. In fact, he was able to break out of the genjutsu more quickly than most people, trailing only 4 others in terms of the fastest time to cancel the jutsu. Iruka was unable to cope with this change in skill. It didn't add up previously. Naruto had either barely passed or failed to complete all of the tasks assigned to him. The clone jutsu had been the cause of Naruto's demise. He was able to produce 2 of them, but they were so pitiful that Iruka declared him to have failed right away, without even considering his results from the other tests. Even Mizuki, who attempted to raise that point, was disregarded by him. But with his parents dead, how could he let Naruto go and be content? Naruto appeared to be very happy about proving that he was a skilled ninja, and Iruka felt sad because of that. As parents approached him to express gratitude for his guidance of their children, Iruka decided to put everything on hold because he knew that tonight would be a long one. Naruto ducked into the alleyway wall and punched it. "Damn it, The situation wasn't just everything else he had done was right. Whatever they asked him to do, he had done it flawlessly. They failed him despite his correct answers to all the questions because he was unable to create flawless clones. He wouldn't even employ that dumb jutsu. Anyway, I did everything else right. I'm better than nearly everyone they passed but failed me because I can't do one fucking jutsu. With pain shooting through his now bleeding fist, he winced and punched the wall once more. You shouldn't do that, Naruto. I mean, what if you broke your hand? You wouldn't be able to take the retest now, would you? To find out who had ambushed him, Naruto swiftly dropped into a fighting stance, his eyes widening. The man emerged from the darkness to declare that he was, in fact, Naruto-sensei. Calm down, Naruto, it's me, Mizuki-sensei, he said. Without shifting his position, Naruto questioned, what do you want? To give you another chance at graduating, a fair chance. Iruka-sensei was a bit hasty in failing you. I think the shock of how well you did got to him. All the proctors looked over your test results and we decided to give you a retest since nearly all of your results were near perfect, Mizuki said with a hopeful expression on Naruto's expression. As he dropped out of stance, Naruto asked, so what's the test? Without lowering his guard, there was a problem. He had never before heard of anyone being permitted to retest. It's really easy. All you need to do is get me a scroll, Mizuki said, her smile tinged with madness. Gazing at the enormous scroll beside him, Naruto grinned before Mizuki met him later that night near the dilapidated shack in the woods. Mizuki had informed him that his retest would be to retrieve this scroll full of jutsu and learn one of them. Naruto was pleased to announce that he had mastered the first jutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsu, 5 hours prior. However, there was a problem with this test. If this was a test, why was the scroll placed in the Hokage mansion rather than the academy? Naruto took out a pen and a blank scroll and shrugged it off. He wasn't going to learn just one of the powerful and challenging jutsu in this scroll, Shadow Clone Jutsu. 2 pops of smoke billowed up beside him, and 2 exact replicas of himself stood waiting for commands. I need you two to copy as many of the jutsu in the scroll as you can before Mizuki-sensei gets here. Got it? Right, boss. The 2 clones greeted him with a salute and went to work, while the real Naruto rested beside the shack where he was to meet Mizuki. Naruto. Iruka was standing over Naruto when he sat up. Naruto was generally taken aback to see Iruka instead of Mizuki, but he wasn't sure how long it had been since his clones had completed copying as much of the scroll as they could. Naruto remarked, I thought Mizuki was supposed to come and get me, as Iruka's expression turned perplexed. Iruka frowned as he observed Naruto's appearance and said, Mizuki? What are you talking about? There's no getting out of trouble this time, Naruto. The boy had been training, and he knew it was a dumb question, but he had to ask. Have you been training out of the scroll this whole time? Naruto said, yes, I have been, considering I had to pass the test. As he got to his feet, so do I pass? Pass? What do you mean do you pass? Iruka inquired. Naruto felt that something was wrong with Mizuki's test. Mizuki-sensei gave me a retest, didn't he? He told me if I managed to get this scroll from the Hokage mansion and learned one of the jutsu inside, I'd pass the graduation test. Naruto said. This realization caused Iruka's eyes to widen. Iruka told Naruto the truth, and he ground his teeth. Naruto, there is no retest. The scroll you took is full of forbidden jutsu. Everyone in the village is looking for you, thinking you've run off to another village to give them our secrets. Naruto said he had been misled once more. He was aware that the snake in the grass was not someone he should have trusted. Naruto and Iruka turned around and saw Mizuki standing on a branch of an old, tattered tree. Oh well, they said, seems like I've been found out. As he spoke, Mizuki's hands were twirling a large shuriken. Guess I have to kill you as well, Iruka. As the enormous weapon of death sank into Naruto's back, Iruka realized what he had said and leapt in front of him, still in shock over being betrayed. Naruto had collapsed when he saw the weapon approaching and looked at Iruka, who had shielded him. Why? Why did you protect me? Because you're my student, Saraya. You get into fights and you don't show anyone the proper respect. Buddha, it's because you're lonely. I was like you. My parents died and I was left all alone. I didn't know how to get the proper attention and became the class clown. No one should feel like that, not even you. I should have been a better sensei toward you. Let my own feelings determine what you were and Noda who you are. I'm so sorry, Naruto. Iruka let the tears fall freely. When Iruka apologized, Mizuki burst out laughing. Don't be fooled, Naruto. Iruka isn't sorry. The only reason he got in the way is so he can kill you himself. In reality, he despises you just like the rest of the village. He hates you with all of his heart. After all, you killed his parents, Mizuki said with a smirk. Iruka exclaimed, Mizuki, don't. You can't tell him. It's forbidden. To the man he believed to be his friend. Tell me. Everyone always treats me like a monster and never tells me why. I'm so sick of not knowing. All my life I've been told I killed a bunch of people, but I don't remember killing anyone. What did I do to make everyone hate me? Naruto was not going to allow this chance to pass by. Iruka screamed frantically. Mizuki, we can't tell him. The truth was meant to be known only by Naruto and no one his age. If you're worried about the death penalty, don't be. I'm going to kill you in a minute anyway. Mizuki told Iruka. Then he looked at Naruto. When the young nin did not respond, he went on to tell the story, saying, I'll tell you, Naruto, as long as you give me the scroll. It happened the day you were born, the day the nine-tailed fox attacked our village. The Yondaime was the only one with the ability to stop it. He sealed the Kyuubi away into a newborn child and saved the village at the cost of his own life. Guess who that child was? Mizuki giggled when he saw Naruto's. I've got the Kyuubi sealed inside of me, right? Am I the Kyuubi? Now, all of the names, insults, and taunts directed at him made sense, and Naruto was furious. Why me? Why did the Yondaime choose me? He screamed. It was unfair. Why wasn't someone else selected to have the Kyuubi sealed inside of him? Mizuki laughed uncontrollably as he imagined Naruto transforming into the Kyuubi and destroying the pitiful village. It doesn't matter why the Yondaime chose you. You are the Kyuubi and no one will ever see you as anything else. You killed Iruka's parents and the loved ones of everyone in the village. No one will ever accept you. Now give me the scroll and I might let you live long enough to get your revenge, Mizuki said. Slowly, Naruto got to his feet. Iruka-sensei, Naruto said sternly, can I become a genin if I defeat Mizuki-sensei? Iruka had succeeded in removing the shuriken from his back and had collapsed onto the grass. I'll see what Ia can do, he said. Iruka was fortunate that his spinal column had not been struck by the shuriken. Before turning to the bond, Mizuki snorted at his fellow teacher, saying, how pathetic, Iruka. And you call yourself a chunin? Mizuki pulled out his secondary shuriken and hurled it at the blonde. So you think you can take me on, huh? Well, let's see what you can do, Kyuubi, he said. On the spinning weapon, Naruto ducked with haste. He seized the scroll and fled into the forest. Mizuki followed Naruto, saying, don't run away, Kyuubi. Mizuki caught up to Naruto. In just 1 minute Naruto had stopped in another clearing, holding the scroll against his leg while closing his eyes. So you decided to face death head on, you fucking fox? Mizuki asked. I'm not going to die, you are, Naruto said soothingly. Don't fool yourself, Kyuubi. You can't beat me. You can't even do a simple clone jutsu right. Your test results were just a fluke. It's obvious you cheated, so quit the tough guy act and hand over the scroll to me. Mizuki lunged at Naruto's face. Naruto swung his leg around and hurled the scroll in the direction of the traitor, saying, you should be careful what you wish for, sensei, you just might get it. Mizuki was taken by surprise and leapt to retrieve his prize. As soon as he had the scroll in his arms, a searing pain exploded in his thighs and forearms, causing him to collapse in agony. Oh. You fucking piece of shit, Mizuki exclaimed as he raised his arms to reveal multiple shurikens stuck in his legs and a kunai protruding from both of his limbs. He turned back to Naruto and was startled to see that the boy's once bright blue eyes had changed to red ones with slits. I knew you were really the fox. You're just like everyone else. You only see me as the fox and not the human I really am. You're afraid of a power I never even knew I had. I want to thank you, sensei, for helping me make up my mind, Naruto said with a dark voice. I could help you level the village to the ground. Mizuki couldn't take his eyes off the blood-red eyes of the demon in front of him. I knew you would destroy the village. You should have been killed the day you were born. The only thing I don't understand is why get in my way. I hate this village just as much as you do. It's full of idiots like Iruka. After telling Naruto, I'm not going to destroy the village, Mizuki looked at him bewildered. I'm going to decimate it, and I don't need your help. I'm the Kyuubi after all, right? Ha 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 ha. No, I'm going to protect Konoha and kill all of her enemies. For Mizuki, nothing made sense. What? Why would you protect the village that hates you so much? Why? So that I'm the only one that can obliterate it. Mizuki was taken aback. The village was correct. He was the Kyuubi. Indeed, he saw that the boy before him was not human. He was a monster that waited for the ideal opportunity to attack. Ignoring the pain in his limbs, Mizuki charged forward, removing a kunai from one of his supply pouches and driving it deep into the Kyuubi's stomach. I can't let you live. You're truly a monster that I can't ignore. I will be seen as a hero for killing you, he said. After a few seconds, the boy vanished in a swiftly dissipating cloud of smoke. What? Jutsu substitute? No, something else would take his place. I am aware that I stabbed him. Clone jutsu. Then? I felt him, so that can't be it. Mizuki asked. Where did you go, you little fuck? But all she could see when she scanned the clearing was the forbidden scroll. You coward, show yourself, you damn fox. Mizuki froze at the whisper in his ear and the jagged edge of a kunai blade at his neck. Maybe you should go back to the academy, Mizuki-sensei. Your genjutsu sensing skills need some work, Mizuki said. His soul was being pierced by Naruto's demonic eyes as he towered over him. Mizuki threw his head back, striking Naruto in the stomach, causing the boy to stagger backwards. And you shouldn't underestimate an opponent, demon, Mizuki said using his momentum. Mizuki flipped back onto his feet and charged Naruto, brandishing a kunai that was poised to stab him this time. Mizuki's left lung was the target of Naruto's counterattack, which he easily blocked. Mizuki grabbed Naruto by the arm and proceeded to chop off the boy's appendage. Mizuki lost his hold and missed Naruto's mark as he leapt and whirled his body around. Once on the ground, Mizuki fell to the ground in agony as Naruto kicked one of the shuriken that protruded from the Chunin's leg and pushed it in deeper. Mizuki rolled away from the academy student, forced the pain from his thoughts, and got up shakily. You fucking piece of shit, you really were holding out in the academy, weren't you? Well, I'm sorry to say, but this is where we finish this and you die. Then I'm going to go back for Iruka and finish him off as well. Anyone that sympathizes with you deserves to die. Mizuki felt a sharp pain in his back, but then his head was pulled back and a kunai sliced through his neck. I'm not going to die, he said, but Naruto was standing behind him, his kunai dripping with Chunin's blood and his hair clenched in his fist. You are. Mizuki gurgled as his life started to fall apart. How? Mizuki looked toward the scroll and saw that it was gone. I did as you instructed and learned the shadow clone jutsu from the scroll, she said. You were Thea scroll, Mizuki said as the Kyuubi's eyes forced themselves into his consciousness. A white ceiling was staring down at Iruka when he woke up. Am I still alive? A sterile odor filled his nostrils, and a faint beeping cut through the quiet. Was he in a medical facility? How? He was certain that the forest was where he would perish. Who had located him? Iruka glanced to his left and saw the Sandame smoking his pipe. We found Naruto dragging both you and the forbidden scroll back into the village. He revealed that Mizuki had tricked him into stealing it and would have succeeded in getting away if you hadn't found him, Iruka said. At the old Hokage's nod, Iruka smiled and said, and Naruto managed to beat Mizuki. Yeah, I want to rescind my decision on failing Naruto. Heya. Iruka started coughing up blood. The Hokage took a long drag from his pipe and then exhaled the smoke slowly. Don't push yourself, Iruka. You're lucky that Mizuki missed your spinal column or you'd be out of a job now, and I've already approved Naruto for passing his exams. He more than proved he's a capable ninja, the Hokage said. Naruto killed Mizuki. Iruka gave the Hokage a startled look. A Chunin had been killed by Naruto. Did Mizuki truly deserve to die, even though he had betrayed the village? Hiruzen sighed as he considered the death of a Chunin. Mizuki revealed an S-class secret. Iruka, he sealed his fate the moment he told Naruto the truth surrounding his birth. If Naruto hadn't killed him, he would have been killed later anyway, he said. Rest for now, Iruka. The team formations have been pushed back a couple of days so that we can investigate what would motivate Mizuki to betray us. Hiruzen left Iruka to think since he had nothing more to say. Naruto sighed with weariness. He had made the decision to exhaust himself by performing push-ups until he was unable to move anymore because he was having trouble sleeping. His thoughts kept repeating what he had said to Mizuki. Was it truly what he meant? In order to be the only one left to destroy Konoha, would he actually hunt down all of its adversaries? But he was bothered by more than just his words. Naruto's senses had become more acute during his battle than they had ever been. Mizuki could almost predict the traitor's next move because his movements had seemed too slow for a Chunin. Had he harnessed the power of the fox? Fuck, this is all too confusing. Kit yelled at Naruto for disturbing its sleep when he pushed himself up and fell onto his bed. Shut up, Kit. After giving him a snarl, the fox curled up beside him. Naruto started idly petting his lone companion. Naruto smiled as he lifted his other hand to his forehead, took off the black cloth headband the Hokage had given him, and did so. He had succeeded at last. He was a ninja. Naruto allowed his body to go limp and his heavy eyelids to close as he finally felt sleep take over. Only a whisper in his ear was the last sound he heard. You finally have the power to seek revenge. I can't wait to see this village burn. When Uzumaki Naruto, 5, looked up at the profanity, he was startled to see that it wasn't aimed at him. Fucking fox, he exclaimed. The shop owner saw Naruto and his frown deepened, saying, was it you that brought that fucking thing to my shop? No, it was you? Get out of here before you ruin my business. Naruto heard a sharp whining and a yelp of pain before a black blur rushed past him. Huh? Naruto made himself scarce in no time after running down the street in tears. He ducked into an alleyway in the hopes that no one had noticed. He turned around before he could exhale in relief that nobody had entered the alley due to a loud growl. When Naruto saw a black fox with blood leaking from its front right leg and sharp teeth capable of tearing flesh, his eyes widened. After recovering from his initial shock, Naruto walked slowly toward the injured creature and said, "You're that fox that guy was yelling at, right?" The closer Naruto approached the small fox, the more it snarled. Finally, Naruto reached the fox and stuck his hand out to grab the terrified animal. He felt a sting as the fox bit into his hand. "Are you alone too?" "I'm alone a lot and nobody seems to like me." "I don't think anybody likes you either. I don't want to be alone anymore," Naruto said. Despite flinching, Naruto kept his hand in place. He was sick of being by himself all the time. He was fed up with being vilified for something he was unaware of. Naruto wrapped the fox in his other arm, lifted it into his arms, and simply held it as the fox gripped his hand tightly with its jaws. Tears slowly trickled down his young face. His tears kept coming as the pain in his hand persisted. "I don't want to be alone anymore. I don't want to be alone anymore. I don't want to be alone anymore," he stated. He noticed that the fox was licking at his blood, seemingly to clean it, when he suddenly felt a sticky substance rubbing against his wound. "Come on, kid, let's find somewhere warm to sleep tonight," Naruto said, grinning sadly before getting to his feet. When Uchiha Sasuke awoke, she was frowning. As she left to receive her team assignment for the first time in her ninja career, today was expected to be thrilling and full of pride from her family. There was dead silence when she woke up, rather than the lovely smell of her mother's cooking or the hum of water pipes while her father or brother showered. She had been in silence for nearly 6 years. With a sigh, Sasuke turned over on her side to gaze at her nightstand, where a photo of her family was smiling and staring back at her. Unable to look at him, she slammed the picture down, a frown quickly forming on her face. Sasuke got out of bed, checked her clock, and went about her morning routine before meeting up with her only friends, Yamanaka Ino, Haruno Sakura, and Hyuga Hinata, before the four of them made their final trip to the academy. To make sure everything was in its proper place, the girl walked around her tiny apartment, having taken up her mother's cleaning techniques before then. She had lived in the apartment since she was 6.5 and made sure it was kept tidy and clean. Before starting to prepare her breakfast, Sasuke went into the kitchen and took out a tomato and 2 eggs from her refrigerator. She chopped the tomato into 6 equal pieces and scrambled the eggs before savoring her cooking. She poured herself some orange juice and salted the tomato piece. She went to her bedroom and took out a dark blue shirt with the symbol of her clan embroidered on the back and a high collar. Then came white arm cuffs with blue straps and white shorts. She put on her new clothes after slipping out of her sleepwear, which consisted of a black tank top and black shorts. She put on her ninja sandals, wrapped her ankle and lower legs with her medical tape, and hurried out the door. 10 minutes later, Sasuke was waiting for Ino to emerge so they could meet Hinata and Sakura in front of the Yamanaka flower shop. While Hinata lived along Sakura's path to the academy, Ino lived along Sasuke's. They got together in the center, right outside the Ichiraku ramen shop. "I swear you look more and more like Makoto-san every time I see you. Are you excited to have finally graduated from the academy?" Ino's mother had come out to place some fresh flowers on display in front of the store. "Oh, Sasuke-chan, how have you been?" she asked. When the older woman brought up her mother, Sasuke gave the brunette a gloomy glance. The mothers of Ino, Hinata, and Sakura had all been childhood friends of her own mother and frequently arranged play dates for their daughters. The 3 girls had always simply been there, which was why Sasuke was friends with them. She couldn't bring herself to let go of a constant in her life. Sasuke considered taking a different route to the academy or ceasing to acknowledge them on numerous occasions, but she chose not to. All she had left of her former existence were these. Every time she walked into that empty apartment, they served as her escape from the reality she had to deal with, a means of forgetting his actions. When she found herself alone, Sakura's and Ino's families offered to take her in, but Sasuke turned them down. Even though Sakura's mother genuinely cared for her, her family only saw her as a means of advancing in status and gaining some discretion in ninja affairs, and that's what Ino's family was, a household. Sasuke was unsure if she would ever be able to start a family again if she just joined another family. It was almost like she was spitting on the graves of everyone she had lost that night. Regarding Hinata's family, the Hyuga and her clan had never been on good terms. As the most powerful and dominant clan in the village, the Hyuga and Uchiha had been engaged in conflict for as long as she could remember. In addition to being uncomfortable, Sasuke had never been fond of Hinata's father. She was reminded of her own father by the man, and the demands he placed on her remaining in the Hyuga would not be effective. "Sorry I'm late, Sasuke. Somebody didn't wake me up," said the girl as she ran out of the store before Sasuke could respond to Ino's mother. Ino gave her mother a stern look. As a mother would, the elder Yamanaka placed her hands on her hips and gazed at Ino. "I would think that an aspiring young kunoichi could get up on her own. Take Sasuke-chan for example. She has never been late even once and arrives at the same time every day," she said. "But that's Sasuke. She's perfect at everything she does. Would ever come on Sasuke. I'm sure Hinata and Sakura are waiting for us, Ino said sharply, grabbing the Uchiha by the hand and dragging her away despite her friend's criticism. All Ino's mother did was laugh to herself and return to her job. After inhaling deeply, Naruto opened his eyes gradually. As he usually did every morning, he had been up since sunrise and spent an hour meditating. He had taken up the practice after meeting a monk when he was 5 years old after requesting a mission. The monk arrived in the village and spent several weeks teaching Naruto the fundamentals of meditation as well as its numerous applications and usefulness. Naruto has continued to meditate every morning before beginning his physical training ever since his training routine included push-ups, sit-ups, abdominal exercises, jumping jacks, dips using one of his chairs, and practicing the different kata for the academy martial arts. After completing all of this, he started preparing instant ramen for Kit and himself since his milk had gone bad 2 weeks prior. He decided to put the 2 eggs he had chilling in his malfunctioning refrigerator for another day. The Hokage gave him a meager allowance, usually enough to buy 1 or 2 high-quality foods and the inexpensive items he would need for the next 2 weeks if he changed his appearance. A large portion of Naruto's possessions, such as his appliances and furniture, were either bought for him by the Hokage or found in trash heaps. Even owning clothes was a rare privilege. The few clothes Naruto did own had to be washed by hand all the time. In general, his apartment was empty, with a sizable void in the wooden floor where Naruto used to train. In anticipation of being fed that morning, Kit scratched at Naruto's leg. The fox's impatience over the mere 3 minutes it took to prepare the ramen made Naruto laugh, saying, "It's almost ready, just be patient." He received a yip in response, and Naruto grinned. He genuinely cared for the fox more than any other creature in the village. They kept each other company despite being 2 undesirable desirables. Naruto had been appreciative of the fox's acceptance and had always taken care of Kit, sometimes at his own expense in return for feeding the fox. He had even gone hungry a few times. Not that Naruto wasn't appreciative of the Hokage, the old man's assistance, or Iruka's apology. It's just that the small act of kindness wasn't enough to stop the anger that was building inside of him. One man's apologies couldn't undo all that had transpired. Naruto's face took on a gloomy expression as he recalled things he would prefer to forget right now. Today should be interesting, Kid. I'm being assigned to my ninja team for the first time in my career. I wonder who I'll be paired with, Naruto said, pouring half of the instant noodles into Kit's bowl before sitting down at his table to eat. Kit gave him a yap. Naruto looked at his friend incredulously and said, "You really think that I would be paired up with the Uchiha? I would rather have the Hyuga than that stuck-up bitch." Kit yipped again. "I don't think she's cute, stupid fox. She thinks she's better than everyone just because she's from a clan," revealed Naruto, who was shocked by Kit. The fox gave a yip that sounded almost twisted. "I do not have a crush on her. I'm nothing like Kiba. Besides, I don't want anything to do with anyone from this shitty village." Naruto grumbled. Why, of all things, was a fox making fun of him? Kit merely gazed at him. Naruto snarled, "That's it, I'm leaving," and tossed his empty cup aside. He then hurled Kit's bowl into the sink, quickly cleaned it, filled it with water, and placed it on the floor for the fox to reach. Naruto went to his bathroom, turned on the sink, and then poured water over his face. Thinking about how Kit was like a brother to him made him smile a little. He had always pondered what having a family would be like, to have a mother who constantly checked to see if he had eaten breakfast and cleaned his room, a father who congratulated him on passing his academy exams, or a sibling who teased him mercilessly about girls and whether he had a crush on any of them. Kit's statement that he had hoped Uchiha Sasuke was on his side wasn't wholly incorrect. Although Naruto had a crush on the girl at one point, he never thought their relationship would work out. They were complete opposites in the class. She was at the top and he was at the bottom. He was sent to an orphanage when he was a baby, but she was born into a wealthy family. He only had Kit. While she had friends, the village hated him with a ferocity and loved her every step. One notable similarity between himself and the Uchiha heir was that they were both by themselves. Although he was unaware of the details, he had heard that she was the only survivor of Konoha's worst massacre to date, after one man killed her entire clan. Over the course of one night, 75 people were all being processed and tagged for burial. These individuals were Sasuke's whole family, some of the best ninja Konoha had to offer, and some of the world's most lethal ninjas. Furthermore, the majority of Konoha's police force was composed of Uchiha, and the police had even been represented by their clan's emblem. In a single night, Sasuke had lost her family like him. She was alone, returning home each night to an empty apartment and wishing for something that was either gone or never there in the first place. After splashing his face once more, Naruto went back to his room and put on a black shirt with a tribal red flame in the center and black pants. Then, before leaving for the academy, he zipped up his orange jacket and grabbed a black and red one. As Kiba entered the room where the graduating academy students were supposed to gather for team projects and orientation, He questioned, "What the hell are you doing here dead last?" Before returning to staring into space, Naruto merely indicated the headband he had put on when he first arrived at the academy. He was the first to arrive. Having arrived 30 minutes early, other graduates started to arrive around 15 minutes prior to the meeting, and now, with just 5 minutes remaining before the orientation, almost all of the graduates have shown up. Kiba was not going to be shown up this time. "I can see the headband, loser. I'm not blind. What I want to know is where you stole it from, because last I checked you failed your graduation exams," she said. Sasuke had not yet shown up, and he would never allow Naruto to even have the opportunity to join her team. "I was given another test. Iruka-sensei failed me without taking into account my overall score. The Hokage himself proctored for it, so if you really want to contest me being here, then go bother him," Naruto said. Looking back at Kiba with a bored expression, Naruto wasn't in the mood for Kiba's antics right now. Many of the students listening snickered and tried not to laugh. "Get real dead last. I've never heard of a fucking retest, and I doubt they would give one to you. It must have been simple for a retard to pass if you were able to pass," they said. Naruto said, "I had to kill a traitor to the village," and his icy gaze said it all. Everybody had fallen silent. Kiba was able to say, "Why yeah right." After overcoming Naruto's expression, he had seen that expression on numerous occasions when his sister and mother returned from high-level missions. When someone had killed someone, they would have said, "Stop lying, you idiot, and get lost already." Everyone's focus was on the final graduate to arrive. If he has a regulation headband, then he graduated. "I highly doubt someone like Naruto would be able to steal one and get away with wearing one," the statement read. At the sound of Sasuke's voice, Kiba had instantly closed his mouth. When the Princess 4 finally showed up, they appeared irritated with Kiba. One of the boys, Haruno Sakura, who was regarded as a pink-haired goddess, moved forward and folded her arms. Everyone was shocked to hear Sakura, who had made it clear throughout the last 6 years of being in the academy that she didn't like the blonde, say, "Get a life, Kiba. You barely were passing yourself. I heard that all of your test results credited you just enough points to pass." Meanwhile, I overheard some of the sensei talking about Naruto's scores and how he had the highest scores and would have received a perfect score had he not messed up the clone jutsu. He did better than even Sasuke. Was the Rookie of the Year truly surpassed by Naruto? Sasuke glanced over to the blonde with disbelief gaze. "Naruto scored better than me? I know he's been holding back, Buddha, by just how much is the question? Not only that, but he said that his retest was to kill a traitor. I heard rumors about Mizuki-sensei stealing an important scroll from the Hokage mansion, but did they really send a dead last to take him out?" As Ino and Sakura shoved Kiba aside and took their customary seats in the center of the classroom, Sasuke was interrupted from her thoughts. The only 2 seats in the class were on either side of Naruto, and Hinata eeped as she timidly walked to them. The meekness of Hinata made Sasuke sigh. The girl couldn't even speak around the blonde boy because she had a crush on him since before they all joined the academy. The fact that the Hyuga heiress hadn't even managed to say hello after 6 years of acquaintance was pretty pitiful. The fact that Naruto was unaware of the girl's existence didn't help either, to be honest. Sasuke was shocked that Hinata had survived to sit beside him without passing out. When Kiba once again made the decision to ask her out, Sasuke forced the thought from her mind and started to head for her seat, figuring Hinata probably needed some moral support. Sasuke just pushed Kiba away when he said, "Yuha Sasuke-chan, I was wondering if after our orientation that you would like to give it up." "Kiba, if Sasuke hasn't said yes to all of your other attempts, she isn't going to say yes now." Ino laughed as she turned to face the dog boy. Kiba returned to his seat, complaining to himself about dumb blondes while the other students laughed and he tried to look cool. "I would like to start off by saying how proud I am of each and every one of you for working so hard over the last 6 years, Iruka said, grinning as he finally entered the classroom with a slight limp and saw that all of the new genin were already seated. Naruto glanced at the Uchiha heir seated beside him as Iruka started speaking, and he muttered softly, "I don't need your or your friend's help. HN, we weren't helping you, we just can't stand listening to Kiba making himself sound important," he said sharply and brusquely, glaring at Naruto's lack of gratitude. "Sure." She went back. Sasuke paused to look at the blonde, and to his surprise, he had no orange at all on his clothes. His incredibly vivid orange and blue jacket had been replaced with a black and red one, and he was wearing black pants that wrapped white around his ankles and lower legs. Like her, he had chosen a black cloth for his headband. She felt the heat rising on her cheeks as she turned back to face him. As it should have, he appeared more mature than childlike due to the whisker-like scars on his face and the lack of baby fat around his jawline. She had the impression that she was plunging into an endless sea of suffering when she had met his eyes before the dead last could see her blush. Sasuke averted her gaze. She didn't need to give the fool the impression that she was crushing on him. In addition, Hinata liked him and was allowed to have him. Hinata had overheard the hushed discussion and had been silently watching it. Hearing Naruto claim that he didn't value or want their intervention with Kiba broke her heart. Hinata averted her gaze and examined the desk before her. She didn't know how to start a conversation with the blonde boy next to her, whom she had a serious crush on. She was afraid of being rejected by her idol. Even though she knew it was pitiful, she turned to face the two again. And did she notice Sasuke blushing? Was Sasuke flushed? What caused Sasuke to flush? For what reason was Sasuke blushing? Sasuke's gaze abruptly shifted away from Naruto's face and toward everything else. Was Naruto the reason Sasuke blushed? Hinata felt a twinge of jealousy. Iruka had finished his speech and roused some of the genin at the mention of team assignments. I will now assign you all to your 3-man teams or cells, as they are more commonly called among the more veteran ninja. Please make sure to pay attention and listen for your name. I will count down from cell 10, which will consist of Hyuga Hinata. Iruka had drawn everyone's attention back to himself. Why yes, Hinata said, escaping Haruno Sakura. Sakura turned back to the Hyuga girl and smiled reassuringly at her friend. Right, she said. Hinata would always have at least one of her friends by her side, regardless of who else was assigned to the squad. And Yamanaka Ino. Ino pumped her fist into the air, exclaiming, girl power, before giving Sakura a high five and sending Hinata a peace sign. The majority of the genin had burst out laughing at Ino's outburst. Naruto studied the newly formed cell without laughing. The heir of the Hyuga clan, which valued its valuable Kekai Genkai, or bloodline limit, the Byakugan, was Hyuga Hinata, a full 360-degree field of vision and the ability to see through objects and even a person's chakra network were made possible by this potent eye technique. Typically, the Hyuga were assigned to tracking and espionage missions. The 4 most attractive and powerful daughters in the village were referred to as the Princess 4, and the girl was one of them. The same name was given to all 4 of their mothers and was inherited by their daughters. The 4 princesses were rarely seen apart from the other 3. Naruto believed that Hinata was the odd one out. She was very reserved and rarely spoke up in class unless Iruka-sensei addressed her directly. He had nothing against her, though, because she had never directly ridiculed him or said anything hurtful. Who knew what she said in private, of course. The merchant clan from which Haruno Sakura was descended had greater influence outside of the ninja community. Naruto had heard that the girl's father was opposed to her becoming a ninja, and he was certain that she was a first-generation ninja in order to graduate and become a genin. Sakura demonstrated her book smarts and nearly flawless chakra control. Her test results were at the higher end of the range. Aside from receiving flawless scores on written exams, she was probably going to be trained to be the cell leader and would be most effective as a medic nin or even a strategist. Yamanaka Ino was extremely proud of her ancestry and came from a long line of ninja. The Yamanaka were renowned for their mind-controlling methods, which they had either employed for espionage or interrogation, where they were able to manipulate adversaries to obtain information for them. When they were ready, Naruto was certain that the all-girls cell would receive more espionage missions than any other kind. Cell 8 will consist of Inuzuka Kiba. Naruto turned back to Iruka at the mention of Kiba's name, hoping that he would not be assigned to the same team as the mutt. Yahoo! Kiba exclaimed. Aburame Shino. The boy who remained silent just repositioned his sunglasses. And Akamichi Choji. Choji kept eating the potato chips from his bag. Naruto quickly reviewed everything he knew about the new cell and grinned in his head at not having to put up with Kiba. Kiba was a member of the tracking-focused Inuzuka clan from an early age. They developed a strong bond with a pack of dogs that assisted them in tracking. Using the dog and sharpening their senses was the foundation of many of their jutsu techniques. The Aburame clan's heir, Aburame Shino, employed bugs that consumed chakra. According to a rumor, every clan member had a whole hive inside of them, so it was best to avoid upsetting them. Since the Aburame were also used for tacking, they were typically paired with an Inuzuka. Neither Naruto nor Shino had ever spoken to one another because of his constant black expression and sunglasses. Shino was difficult to read. The Akamichi clan's heir was Akamichi Choji because of their exceptional strength and use of specialized jutsu. The Akamichi were able to grow their bodies to amazing lengths and sizes. Although the majority of members were overweight, their additional fat reserves helped them perform some of their more dangerous jutsu moves. Choji and Naruto were once friends, but after his parents found out, they stopped spending time together. The class turned to face the blonde and prayed that the other genins would not be in his cell. Cell 7 will consist of Uzumaki Naruto, the teacher said. When Naruto saw the girl's jaw drop, he almost lost it, but he was able to maintain his cool. Uchiha Sasuke, he said. Sasuke was genuinely a little relieved to learn that she was in Naruto's cell. I can't believe this. I'm stuck with the idiot, she said. Perhaps now I'll be able to see just how strong he really is. Naruto rolled his eyes at the expression Sasuke was giving him. Great, I'm stuck with the Ice Princess, I said. After earning top grades during her 6 years at the academy and nearly flawless final exam scores, Sasuke was named Rookie of the Year. The Uchiha were skilled in fire jutsu, and their clan's emblem, a fan, represented their command of the element. However, it was their Kekai Genkai, the Sharingan, that had really brought them fame. The bloodline limit was an ocular technique that enabled the user to duplicate everything they saw flawlessly, in addition to seeing attacks in slow motion. Up until their passing 6 years ago, the name Uchiha had been dreaded by people all over the world. And Nara Shikamaru, Naruto said, turning to face the Nara, who was incredibly bored. Before his parents discovered and prevented the two from becoming friends, Naruto used to play with another boy named Shikamaru. Shikamaru belonged to the Nara clan, which was known for producing some of the most talented strategists the village had ever seen and for their expertise in controlling shadows. Ironically, Shikamaru found everything problematic and was utterly lazy. Kiba was furious that he wouldn't be on his crush's team and yelled, "That's bullshit. Why is the dead last in Sasuke-chan's cell? He shouldn't even be here. I know for sure that no one has ever been given a retest before." Although Hinata was relieved that Sasuke was in his cell, she was somewhat disappointed that she wasn't paired with Naruto. Maybe they could occasionally have lunch together in their 2 cells. Even so, she continued to feel envious of Sasuke's ability to spend so much time with Naruto. She was frowning at Kiba at the moment. No one deserved to be here more than Naruto, who put in a lot of effort. Before they could take a lunch break, Iruka still had 6 more cells to announce. "Kiba, I'm really not in the mood for this." Naruto was failed before all of his scores were put together, and when they were finally put together, it was determined that a mistake was made. The Hokage decided he would test Naruto to see if his scores were a fluke, and obviously they weren't. "Now shut up and sit back down," she said. Kiba wanted to call Naruto on his bluff, so he asked, "Is it true that he had to kill a traitor?" Kiba's perseverance caused Iruka to sigh. After some thought, Iruka responded. Naruto's test was interrupted when Mizuki-sensei showed his true colors and stole an important scroll. Naruto had been ordered to go home and that his retest would be put on hold until the matter was resolved. On his way back, Naruto encountered Mizuki, who tried to kill Naruto to keep him from revealing where he was hiding. Naruto killed Mizuki in self-defense. Iruka stopped to let the genin consume what they were being told. Naruto returned the scroll to the Hokage, and after an investigation, Naruto was rewarded with being allowed to become a genin. The entire class, including Kiba, gazed at Naruto to be sitting where he was. The blonde had actually killed someone. After another minute, Iruka went on with the cell assignments. Before she started eating one of the numerous rice balls the 4 genin were sharing for lunch, Ino remarked, "I don't understand why you're not eating with your new teammates, Sasuke." Sasuke met up with the newly formed Cell 10 after they were dismissed for lunch, without even checking to see where the slothful Nara or Uzumaki had gone to eat. They had gone to the 2 benches outside the academy, where they usually eat lunch. Shikamaru would just tell her it's too troublesome and Naruto is just weird. Sakura shrugged, responding on Sasuke's behalf. Sasuke calmly stated, "I really don't care about either of them as long as they don't get in my way. I don't care who my teammates are, though I would have preferred having at least one of you in my cell," without saying much about either boy. Hinata remained silent despite appearing to want to speak. The last group they wanted to deal with broke the cozy silence that had descended upon them as they worked quietly. "If not, what about the Princess 4? So how does it feel to be in the same cell as the dead last and laziest bum in the whole village? I would quit being a kunoichi now if I were you. Just thinking about that loser makes me want to puke. You do realize he's going to get you killed, right?" Harumi Amy was rude to Sasuke. 2 boys, who were undoubtedly in Ami's cell, were at her sides. They had only followed Amy to approach the Princess 4. Harumi Amy had always envied the Princess 4. During her time in the academy, she had dedicated her life to making their lives as miserable as possible. The 4 genin were not only thought to be more attractive than she was, but they had also outperformed her in every way. Angry that Amy was still bothering them, Ino remarked, "Get lost, Amy. It was such a good day up till now." Sakura stopped Ino from attacking the short-haired girl by saying, "I honestly don't understand why Iruka-sensei lied about Naruto's retest. He probably just begged until he got so annoying that they could do nothing but make him a ninja. I think that's all he's good at. Actually, no family or friends. It would be sad if he wasn't so annoying. I would hate to be as lonely as he is. I don't know what I would do without my parents. Maybe that's why he's so messed up. There's no one to reprimand him when he gets in trouble." Amy was interrupted by one of her teammates, who grabbed her shoulder and gestured to their side. The blonde started to approach the group but was pushed aside by Naruto, who was standing there with his fists clenched tightly. "Please, Amy, don't stop on my account," he said after taking 10 steps. He stopped for a moment and said, "You shouldn't talk about things you know nothing about," before continuing on his way back to the academy. "Come on, Amy, we should go." The teammate who had grabbed her shoulder implied that she didn't like the abrupt atmosphere that the blonde had left behind. Angrily, Amy grinds her teeth. "No good orphan. They're all nothing but a waste of space." Amy glared at his dwindling figure in the distance, refusing to play the villain because of that loser. "I know nothing. Who the hell does he think he is? He lies about killing Mizuki-sensei and suddenly he's the king of the world," she said. "You really don't know anything. The loneliness is far worse than any punishment a parent could ever give. You really do annoy me," Sasuke said, slapping the girl's arm just enough to get Amy to back off and head out with her teammates. Nothing could stop him from slipping a kunai underneath the girl's throat. The only thing the girls in Cell 10 could look at was Sasuke's back and the embroidered symbol of the Uchiha clan. In what could only be described as pure, unadulterated annoyance, Uchiha Sasuke frowned. She had been confined to the classroom where the orientation had been held for 2 hours while Naruto and Shikamaru waited for their late Junin sensei. After gathering the newly formed cells they were tasked with, the other Junin sensei departed. The 3 genin had been left alone, even by Iruka sensei. Shikamaru had moved to the front of the class and started lying down on the ground before falling asleep on his back with his hands behind his head, while Naruto was sitting a few seats away from her and simply staring into space. The past 2 hours had been incredibly boring, to put it mildly. All 3 genin had been alerted by the sound of a sliding door. They turned to watch a man enter the classroom. He wore the typical Junin uniform, which included a green flak jacket, blue pants that went into white wraps, and the standard issued blue sandals. His silver hair was spiked up, giving him an older appearance than he most likely possesses. He was dressed in a long-sleeved navy blue shirt that he had rolled up and fingerless gloves with a metal covering for the backhand. He wore his headband at an angle to cover his left eye, and a mask that covered the majority of his face extended up to his nose. As he raised his right hand to his chin in awe, the Junin surveyed the 3 genin and said, "My first impression of you, you're all kind of boring looking." When he evaluated them, Sasuke frowned. The man was going to judge them, and he had the audacity to arrive 2 hours late. Shikamaru slowly rose from his spot on the ground and patted his pants clean of any dust. "Says the man 2 hours late to a mandatory meeting. This is too troublesome," he said. To be honest, he didn't mind the Junin's tardiness at all. It merely meant that he could take a nap and not worry about the career that was demanded of him. The Junin muttered, "Well, you see, I had promised my mother, who has a bad back, that I would help her move into her new apartment today. Why don't we take this meeting somewhere lesser?" He glanced at Naruto and Sasuke before idly glancing at Shikamaru, saying, "Depressing." The genin hurried out of the room to follow the man as he turned on his heel and departed. The genin found themselves outside on the roof of the academy. After 3 minutes of following him, the genin had taken to sitting a few feet away from the Junin, who had positioned himself against the roof railing. "Before we get to the important business," the genin simply stared at the strange man and said, "Why don't we take a moment to get to know one another and to introduce yourselves?" "You mean like stating our names or personal interests?" Shikamaru inquired. "What do you mean by, introduce yourselves?" "My, aren't you the little genius?" the Junin asked mockingly. "I'll go first so that way there won't be any confusion for the simple-minded ones," he said, turning to face Sasuke and Naruto, which caused both genin to glare at him. "My name is Hitaki Kakashi, and I'm going to be your Junin sensei. I really don't feel like telling you any of my likes or dislikes. As for hobbies, I have lots of hobbies and finally a dream for the future. I've never thought about it before. There, now you all know what to say." Sasuke glared at the man even more. "He didn't tell us anything but his name and a fact we already know," he said. "Was this a true elite ninja, a Junin?" He withheld practically all information about himself. A smart move really. He's never met any of us before and doesn't know what sort of motivations we have. He did mention his mother earlier back in the classroom, but for someone like him I really think that was just a lame excuse that he made up. He's sizing us up by getting to know weaknesses and just how well we know how to reveal information. Man, this guy really is troublesome. Why did I have to be put in this cell?" Shikamaru just relaxed and began looking for clouds to take in. What does he mean by Junin sensei? At the thought, Naruto narrowed his eyes a little. Isn't he already our Junin sensei? Something's off, he said. Kakashi pointed to the easygoing Nara, who sighed when called upon, and said, "Why don't you go first, lazy-san?" "What a drag," he said with a sigh. "My name is Nara Shikamaru. I really only like sleeping. I dislike just about anything that requires me to do anything. My hobby is cloud watching, and my dream for the future is to find a wife who'll cook for me and have 2 kids. Sasuke's expression was one of disgust at the idea of having to prepare meals for the easygoing Nara. "Who would marry a lazy bum like him?" she asked. Naruto was still staring at Kakashi, and he had only given Shikamaru's introduction a half listen. Kakashi was practically laughing at the glance that was directed at him. That wasn't so bad now, was it? Alright, you're next to Princess, he said. Genin was really easy to get under your skin. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I don't particularly like anything and I hate a lot of things, she said, glaring at Kakashi to demonstrate that he was on that list. My only hobby is training, and what I have is not a dream because I will make it happen. I am going to restore my clan and kill a certain someone, Sasuke said, clenching her fists together as she considered that man. Shikamaru closed his eyes and concluded that this meeting was truly too problematic. She is way too troublesome. I don't see why Kiba even likes her, he said. Naruto had given her a drab look and said, Joy, it's my turn next. She wants to avenge her clan, explains why she refused to be anything but the best in the academy. Kakashi said, and last but not least Dull-kun, but the blonde didn't reply, which disappointed him. Naruto had maintained a level and impartial tone throughout his statement. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I have quite a few dislikes and like nothing in particular. My hobby is collecting and trying different flavors of ramen. My dream for the future is to get rid of what I dislike, he said. Sasuke wondered, what could he dislike so much that his dream is to get rid of it, but dismissed the idea right away. She didn't have time for the Uzumaki. Shikamaru was genuinely indifferent to Naruto's troubles, asking, why is everyone so troublesome? Wonderful, so I have a lazy bland bored kid, an avenger princess, and a loner. Almost makes me wish I had the all-girl team for once. At least things will be interesting, Kakashi said as he rose from the railing. Great, you're all unique with different ideas and dreams. We'll have our first mission tomorrow. Sasuke had taken notice when a mission was mentioned. What will we be doing? Was the last pertinent topic they were discussing. It's a task the four of us will do together. A survival exercise, Shikamaru groaned. Nothing too difficult but certainly not easy. We already did survival exercises in the academy, Shikamaru said, sitting up, shocked that training was his first task. Kakashi started to laugh out loud at his current train of thought. This isn't anything like those exercises. In fact, you'll wish you were doing those exercises, he said. What's so funny? Inquired Sasuke. The longer she knew this man, the more she disliked him. The three genin either glared at him or appeared irritated. You really won't like my answer, but since I want to see the looks on your faces I'll tell you, Kakashi said, grinning beneath his mask. Of the 30 genin to graduate, only 9 will actually become ninja. The other 21 will be sent back to the academy. In other words, this is a make it or break it pass-fail test, and the chances you'll fail are 70%. The shocked expression on all three of their faces made Kakashi laugh again. I said that you wouldn't like my answer, he said, but he just kept laughing. Sasuke questioned, then what was the point of the graduation test? This man would not stand in her way. She was unable to pay to stay at the academy any longer. Don't you get it? That graduation test was just a farce to see who had the potential to graduate. This is the real graduation test. This is way too troublesome. Shikamaru complained when his father told him to try his hardest this morning. He ought to have known something wasn't right. Naruto frowned at Kakashi, who was now attempting to stop his laughter. That's what he meant earlier. There's a good chance we'll fail and he won't be our Junin-sensei. We'll be sent back to the academy and he'll be able to go back to whatever it is he does, Naruto said. You really are a genius, aren't you? That's exactly how it works. I decide whether or not the lot of you is worth keeping in the program or not. Be at training ground 7 at 0500 sharp and make sure to bring your gear. It's going to be a long day. Well, that's it, you're dismissed, Kakashi said, waving his hand at them before a look of realization crept onto the corner of his face that they could see. I almost forgot, you all should skip breakfast, unless of course you enjoy hurling your stomach out through your mouth, he said, giving the three genin one last grin before vanishing in a cloud of smoke that dissipated. Kit curled up beside Naruto as he lay in bed, contemplating the consequences of failing the test for both him and the fox, who was sleeping at the time. He would be returned to the academy if he failed, and it would be uncertain if he would be permitted to retake the exam. Furthermore, he was unsure of how long the Hokage would assist him in covering the rent for this apartment. He wouldn't have anywhere to go and would be back on the streets. Naruto gazed at his sleeping companion and a faint smile appeared on his face. I can't fail, I have to pass this test, he said. I know it's late, but I was wondering, how would you like to help me out on tomorrow's mission? Kit gave Naruto a grumpy glare after he pushed the animal awake. Again, silence. This was something Sasuke knew more than ever before. Or rather, she appeared to be focusing more on the quiet. Sasuke closed her eyes for a few seconds. She fervently hoped that the silence was a figment of her imagination and that no one had ever murdered her clan or family. Additionally, she hoped that her mother might visit her room and chastise her for not being awake. Unfortunately, It did not work out. Sasuke stood up and surveyed her surroundings. Nothing had changed. It was her apartment. Raising her hands to her face and attempting to shake off the slumber, she vaguely recalled how weak she had just been. Her answer was, TCH. She was indifferent. She looked at the clock and swore she appeared to have risen earlier than she had intended. The kunoichi considered falling back asleep, but she was aware that her mind would not permit it. In light of this, she rose from her bed and entered her bathroom. Her bathroom met the requirements. Despite being rather small, Sasuke prepared the shower by taking off her pajamas. She stepped in and allowed the soap and water to cleanse her as she saw fit. Every time she takes a shower, she finds herself thinking, what should I do? Perhaps it's the water, and believe she did. He was on her mind, Naruto and her past. Naruto? She asked herself, wondering how she had come to think of him. She was interested in him. It was true Sasuke would never acknowledge or even acknowledge that it might even go beyond mere curiosity. Sasuke blushed a little but explained it away as the hot water gently splashing over her. It's just curiosity. She hurriedly wrapped a towel around her body and got out. She went to put on her clothes. After thoroughly drying off, Sasuke took another look at the clock. It's still too early to leave for the practice field. She was not, however, the kind to sit motionless for long stretches of time. She decided to take a walk after leaving her apartment. While walking, a blonde Yamanaka yelled, Sasuke, over here, to the Uchiha. She approached Ino. Even though she hadn't intended to meet her, Sasuke located her other friends close by and met up with her. Ino grinned at the brunette and remarked, good timing. We're just about to head to Ichiraku's. Wanna come along? Sasuke gave it some thought for a few seconds. Should I? Sasuke honestly didn't feel like she fit in with the group. She wasn't that princess-like the others. Despite coming from a clan, she didn't feel like a member of the royal family, and as a result, she constantly felt a little bad about spending so much time with them. She seemed to be a pencil among 3 other pens in a box. Sasuke, however, nodded her head. Sasuke said, sure. She followed the group to Ichiraku's while grinning a little at them. After saying, so, our team assignments were awesome. Ino turned to face Sasuke and said, I mean, at least you weren't stuck with Kiba. Sasuke agreed and sat down on the leftmost stool. Indeed, but I still maintain my position that having at least one of you on my team would have been preferable. Sasuke turned to Ayame, whose notepad was prepared to receive her order, and said, the usual, please. They come to Ichiraku's to eat because it's close to where they meet. The ramen was prepared in a very short amount of time. Sasuke quickly noticed a steaming bowl of ramen in front of her. Sasuke froze in her tracks when she said, I almost forgot you all should skip breakfast, unless of course you enjoy hurling your stomach out through your mouth. She was poised to attack her food with her chopsticks up. Sasuke began eating after thinking, well, I already ordered it, plus, I highly doubt that our first mission would really require me to skip eating. Sakura looked at Sasuke with a hint of sympathy and asked, so, how are you holding up with Naruto and Shikamaru? After finishing their meal, the Princess Four began talking about issues that seemed crucial, with Sasuke's situation at the top of the list. Well, Shikamaru is lazy and Naruto, well, Naruto, I don't really care about them, as long as they don't hinder me in my goals. Sasuke replied with a stern tone. Oh come on, you so cold to boys. Sasuke. You should be interested, but it is Naruto and Shikamaru, so I don't blame you. Ino grumbled, then she gave Sasuke a smile. Sakura winked at Hinata, who flushed when she mentioned her blonde crush, and said, we all know that Shikamaru is lazy. What we, or rather Hinata, wanted to know was about Naruto. Sasuke knew that was untrue when he said, like I said, Naruto is Naruto, there isn't much to him. She couldn't really put her finger on it, but there was something about him. She would have to be confused if she had to express how she felt about him. His abrupt change in attire piqued the interest of all 4 girls. Oh, we just thought that, since you're on the same team now, you might know why he changed his suit. Sasuke was also thinking about it. What caused the abrupt change? I don't know. Why? She was a little intrigued by Naruto's abrupt conversation. It's a girl's natural instincts to want to know everything, and we know nothing about Naruto personally. I think if it wasn't for his personality he would be better liked, Sakura said with a smile. Hinata stumbled over her words and said, meekly, why you think so? Ino scoffed a little at that last statement. I certainly agree he has the looks, but his personality is just so cold. It seems like he really just doesn't care. That is such a turn off. Sasuke asked numbly, how so, in an attempt to pique Ino's interest in this discussion. Ino was searching for the right words to further describe Naruto, but she was unable to come up with any coherent sentences. Well, first off, he acts like he doesn't care at all. It's quite off-putting to see a kid act like that. He even stopped playing with kids his age. He always kept to himself. That's not normal. And as the bookworm Sakura put it, The thing that bothered me was his test scores. They were nearly perfect, the other girls concurred. Was he really that good? I mean, he never showed it in that thing with Mizuki. The girls were trembling. They had all recalled the expression on Naruto's face when he said that Sasuke has seen that look, but the three are unaware of it. She had nightmares about that face, but it wasn't Naruto's, rather, it was his. Sasuke cursed as he glanced at Ichiraku's clock. She had to go to training ground 7. She rose and began to leave them behind. Maybe I will see what Naruto has been holding back today. We have a mission. Ino broke it for the blonde Kunoichi. Life was busy in actuality. Her life has been hectic ever since she rose to prominence as one of the most popular girls in the academy. Being a girl, especially one with her level of beauty, was never easy. She got up, rubbed her eyes, and yawned, putting those conceited thoughts to rest. Then, to get rid of any residual drowsiness, she opened them once more. Ino was shocked to discover that she had woken up earlier than she had anticipated when she checked her clock. To be honest, her mother was correct when she said that a kunoichi should be fairly punctual, but Ino was just Ino and not a skilled ninja. She muttered as she got out of bed and headed to the restroom, yet I'm not an expert ninja, yet. She winced a little as she looked in the mirror. What a complete mess, as was always the case in the mornings. Her hair was unkempt. Ino's natural hair in the morning was evidence that nature was nearly always against beauty. At last, Ino turned away from the mess and began drawing a bath. Ah! She let out a divine sigh and dipped her nude body into the water. Baths were blissful, but showers were useful in a world without baths. Yamanaka Ino could never have made it. She began reviewing yesterday's events at the academy. She was now a ninja at last. She had dreamed of it since she was a young child, when her father used to tell her about his travels in the vast world. She was certain that she had finally taken the first steps toward her own adventures. She was pleased that her friends made up her squad, but she wasn't entirely pleased with Sasuke's circumstances. Sasuke didn't have the best circumstances, but Ino did. Ino believed that Sasuke was in the worst possible position. Sasuke has two people on his team that you don't like or even want, whereas normally you would expect no more than one. She had Naruto dead last, Uzumaki and Shikamaru. Lazy ass. Nara. She didn't think either was ninja material. Shikamaru and Naruto have been that way since they were young. Before Shikamaru stopped hanging out with Naruto, Ino witnessed Shikamaru and Naruto playing together all the time when they were younger. What could have gone wrong? Ino felt more at ease as the water covered her gently. She had a tendency to infer and reflect during those times of calm and clarity. Although she wasn't as intelligent as Shikamaru, she did have a propensity to make the right decisions while taking a bath. Not now. Ino smirked at her logic and thought, perhaps he did something to enrage Shikamaru? No, it's lazy ass Shikamaru. He can't be bothered being angry at anything. Ino shook her head, saying, if not that, it is impossible to reveal Naruto's past. What a mystery that boy is. As Ino pushed it from her mind, she experienced complete relaxation in the bathtub. She actually became so at ease that she forgot she had ever been thinking about the blonde boy. The girl emerged from the bath feeling refreshed and at ease. She hurried to the towel to dry off after feeling her body suddenly become cold. Ino's mother muttered, I am so glad that she didn't get picked to be put with him. Hokage-sama must have listened, just before her husband interrupted her. The father quickly hissed, shush, to signal that their daughter was approaching them. Since they didn't want to be killed, they wanted to keep her in the dark about the Kyuubi boy. The two forced a smile as they turned to face Ino, who had just come into the kitchen where they were talking. To be honest, Ino enjoyed listening in. Although it was a very bad habit, her indulgence was justified because being a ninja encouraged gathering information. She had, of course, heard what they had been discussing. Ino was interested in finding out who they were discussing. She was intrigued by that. Ino's mother asked the young blonde, Ino, aren't you supposed to meet up with Hinata and Sakura for breakfast? Her expression was a mixture of anxiety and amusement, and her hands were on her hips. Ino's mother had asked herself, how much did she hear? When Ino suddenly realized that she had made plans to eat at Ichiraku's with Hinata and Sakura, her eyes widened. Ino shouted, thanks, Mom, as she hurried past them and out the front door. When they got together, Ino asked her friends, so, where is Sasuke? Sakura recalled what had happened to Sasuke's clan with sympathy and remarked, well, after that whole incident with Amy, we couldn't catch up with her to talk to her about it. Just loud enough for the two of her friends to hear, Hinata whispered, that was very unfortunate. The details of what had transpired that night were unknown to both of them, and neither of them could fathom how anyone could have eliminated one of the village's top ninja clans in a single night. They couldn't imagine anyone, not even the Hokage, having that much power. The frightening part was that long periods of silence usually meant nothing positive, so Ino detested them. She immediately came up with other topics to talk about when the conversation paused. Recalling the blonde's actions at the graduation, Ino remarked, "Yano, wasn't Naruto acting strangely?" Nowhere was it popular to discuss Naruto, and Ino anticipated some odd looks. She didn't feel let down. The shock came from the looks the other villagers gave her, but the looks the two of them gave her were expected. The blonde found all of the looks mysterious. How could they look like that? The expressions were all filled with hate or something similar. Sakura, wearing a look of disgusted amazement, said, "Naruto? Why would you talk about him? Did you go rouge on us now, Ino?" Before turning to Hinata and apologizing quickly. "Not funny, Sakura, it's just that he has been acting strangely." At that moment, the group caught a glimpse of Sasuke strolling along the road. Ino yelled, "Sasuke! Over here!" To draw the Uchiha's attention. Sasuke was Naruto's new teammate, so it was very fortunate that they were going to discuss something she might know more about. The blonde smiled as Sasuke approached Ino in the hopes that she would agree. Ino said, "Good timing. We're just about to head to Ichiraku's. Want to come along?" The Uchiha hadn't responded right away, but she kept smiling at him. Sasuke was something else to Ino. She never accepted anything without giving a careful thought. It was a little odd when they first became friends, but now she didn't give it any thought. Ino walked to Ichiraku's with the others after Sasuke nodded her head and responded to her. "So, our team assignments were awesome," Ino exclaimed enthusiastically as she addressed the group with a guilty look on her face. She sat down and said, "I mean, at least you weren't stuck with Kiba." Ino exhaled a breath of relief upon witnessing Sasuke's agreement. "Yeah, but I stand by what I said earlier. I would have preferred it better if I had at least one of you on my team. One bowl of ramen, please," Sasuke responded as he examined the menu. Sasuke had just dropped the bombshell when the three girls turned to face her. An expedition? With Shikamaru and Naruto? That piqued Ino's interest. What was clear was that she was driven to know. This seemed to be stronger in Ino than in either of her parents because she inherited it from both of them. The two girls exchanged a perplexed glance before carrying on with their discussion of Naruto. Inquiring as to the Pinkette's opinion, Ino said, "So, Sakura, what do you think of his new outfit?" "I don't really know. It's Naruto. He's a mystery." All the girls could agree on that one thing about that boy. Naruto awoke with a sharp gasp, perspiration streaming down his face, and a mild sense of disorientation. Naruto inhaled deeply, surveyed his surroundings, and exhaled a sigh of relief upon seeing his room, which he had seen before. Naruto checked the time and saw that it was 4 o'clock. Calming himself from the nightmare he had just experienced with a frustrated sigh, he headed to the bathroom to take a shower. Ignoring Kakashi's warning about throwing up, Naruto turned off the water and hurriedly put on his clothes before preparing breakfast. Was it a dream or is it a memory? It keeps occurring every night since just before the graduation test. Did I really? Naruto shook his head, saying, "Now isn't the time to think about it. Hitaki's test is in less than an hour. I need to finish getting ready." Sasuke frowned and glanced at the watch she kept under her handcuffs. "That jackass is going to be late again," she said. Shikamaru remarked, "Good, it just means I can sleep some more," and then lay down on the spot where the three genin had congregated. Sasuke yelled, "Shikamaru," to her teammate before the slothful Nara could fall asleep. "What?" Shikamaru inquired irritably. "What type of survival mission do you think he'll make us do?" Sasuke responded, "To be honest, I don't really like either of you, but if he's going to give us the time to set up, we might as well. Whatever he's going to throw at us, we need to be ready. This test is to eliminate us from the program, and I've worked too damn hard to fail because of you two." Naruto clenched his fist and put forth a lot of effort. "Sasuke won't be the reason he fails. Man, you're too troublesome. If I had to guess, it could be us against him. A test to eliminate us, huh? Hama, divide and conquer maybe? Probably something to make us work against each other and save himself the trouble," Shikamaru said with a yawn before. "Then again, it could be hike out to some remote wasteland and survive there for however long until he thinks we're worthy of being ninja. Then we should be ready for anything. If we want to be among the 9 that pass, we're going to have to put our differences aside. Whether we like it or not, we're a team and our lives will depend on each other later on," Sasuke told her 2 fellow players. The question, no matter how difficult, had to be asked. But can we even trust each other now? How do Naruto and I know you won't abandon us when it counts? You've always been out for yourself, Shikamaru said. And the same goes for Naruto and me as well. We don't even know anything about each other besides the fact we all went to the academy? Sasuke and Naruto both considered the question, and their faces showed signs of uncertainty. It was also true that they knew very little about one another. See? How can we trust our lives to one another if we don't even know who the others in this team are? Of course there's a 70% failure rate. They set it up that way. If they don't need a team or a specific person, isn't it easier to just get rid of them? They only need 3 cells and they more than likely already know who's going to pass and who isn't. The real question is if we're one of those 3 cells who they want, and it all comes down to trust that we'll do whatever it takes to pass. Hell, we don't even know what our test is yet. How can we prepare for something we have no knowledge about? It's a part of being a ninja. Variables can change in an instant and throw months, even years of preparation into the shithole. It's all too troublesome. Shikamaru sighed deeply. Anger at Shikamaru's sluggishness and Naruto's indifferent manner, Sasuke questioned, "Then what do we do? Just wait for our ass of a sensei and hope we can do this survival mission that we've been given no prep for?" Naruto abruptly said, "I have an idea," leaving the other two looking bored. Kakashi sensed the glares coming from the other side of the field as he walked languidly toward his charges. The Junin rubbed the back of his head and gestured back the way he had come. "Sorry, I'm late. You see, a black cat crossed my path and I had to take the long way around," he said, waving his hand apologetically before speaking to them. There was a faint coughing sound, and he heard the words, "Liar," and, "Yeah, right. Right. Well then let's get this over with. I have an important date tonight and I think I might get lucky," Kakashi said, smiling as he felt Sasuke's glare deepen. Ignoring the remarks, he took an alarm clock out of his pack and placed it on a tree stump. The clock said, "It's set to go off at noon," and Kakashi pointed to it. "You'll have from now to then to get one of these bells from me," he said, removing 2 bells and hanging them for the genin to see. "Whoever doesn't get a bell will get tied to one of those posts and watch as the winners eat lunch." The idea made 3 stomachs rumble in protest, and Kakashi's eyes smiled once more. Kakashi said, "Oh, and whoever doesn't pass will be sent back to the academy, to remind them of the true consequences of failing." Sasuke doesn't like the thought of competing with her teammates. "How is that fair? There's only 2 bells. No matter what happens, at least one of us will fail," she said. Shikamaru furrowed his brow, trying to come up with a strategy for passing the test without facing Naruto or Sasuke. "That's the point, so at least one of us fails and he doesn't have to train all 3 of us. TCH. This test is way too troublesome," he said. All 3 genin gave Kakashi a serious look and said, "Unless you come at me with the intent to kill, you will all fail. Now begin." Kakashi teased Shikamaru, saying, "Very perceptive, lazy-kun. The test would start in 30 seconds, and he had one last piece of advice for the 3 of you." The silver-haired man giggled to himself in a peculiar way before spotting Naruto Uzumaki. "Oh, you're the dead last of your group, right? You sure it's wise to take me on by yourself?" Kakashi waved Naruto away as a non-threat. Kakashi stood motionless, easily sensing where each genin had gone. Not bad for genin, at least they all separated themselves. Well, the test did just begin. I'll give them a little more time before I start the fun. The blonde wasn't a match for Naruto. Even if the rumors were accurate and he had killed Mizuki, the gap between a genin and a junin was simply too great. Naruto braced himself by saying, "You shouldn't underestimate an opponent, sensei." Although he had never engaged in combat with a junin, he would undoubtedly outrun them on numerous occasions. In addition, Shikamaru and Sasuke were still organizing the scheme. When Kakashi said, "That's cute, you think you need to lecture me? Well then here's a lesson for you: taijutsu. The art of hand-to-hand combat. Let's see how good you area dead last." He knew he had accidentally made Naruto wince. Then, to the surprise of Naruto and the 2 hidden genin, he reached into his back pouch and took out an object. Naruto simply gave the junin a fierce look and asked, "Why did you pull that out?" Kakashi started reading and turning pages without even glancing at Naruto. Why? To find out what happens, of course. After all, you're nothing more than a nuisance and my book is far more entertaining than anything you try to do," he said. Naruto charged in. Annoyed, Naruto leapt and contorted his body to swing his right leg around and kick Kakashi in the head, just a foot away from crashing into the bored junin. Kakashi used his free arm to languidly block the kick while maintaining eye contact with the page he was reading. "Shadow Clone Jutsu," Naruto said, forming his index and middle fingers into a cross before he fell. Kakashi dropped backwards and dodged the fist that was aimed at his face as a puff of smoke appeared in front of him. A sharp pain shot through the clone's stomach before it subsided as the junin kicked his leg upward as soon as possible. Kakashi stood up and read more. After frowning, Naruto produced 2 kunai knives. Kakashi went to catch it before it could hit him, and he smirked as he threw one. Kakashi discovered Naruto's kneecap in his face as the man reached for the thrown projectile. Naruto had switched places with his thrown kunai, using the replacement jutsu, keeping up his momentum. Naruto kicked at the book in Kakashi's hand, causing it to fly out of his now loose grasp, and twisted his torso. After spinning himself around by grabbing the junin's flak jacket from behind, Naruto used his last kunai to cut loose a bell. Before the genin's kunai could cut the bell's string, Kakashi grabbed Naruto's arm and twisted his body to throw the genin away from him. "Dead last, my ass." he exclaimed while Naruto skidded across the field on his back. Kakashi landed in a crouch. I hope you know that if you damaged my book, you're buying me a new one, Kakashi said, irritated as he gazed at his book trash. Naruto said, only if you give me one of those bells, and stood up. His clothes covered in dirt. A huge gash was visible where his arm had been pulled against the floor, and blood trickled from his hand and rolled down his elbow. Before Naruto or the other two genin could understand what had happened, Kakashi was crouching behind the blonde with his hands clenched in the tiger seal. You really shouldn't let your enemy get behind you, he said, bending over to pick up his book again. You're going to have to do better than this to get them from me. Do you honestly believe you can take them from me? I'm a Junin and I've been assigned a mission that I refuse to fail? Naruto had widened his eyes. The man had simply vanished from view while he was staring at him. There was no way. Shikamaru started to reorganize the plan in his mind. This is way too troublesome. His speed is ridiculous. I really am not sure if this plan is going to work anymore. Geez, he's going to destroy Naruto, he said. Sasuke was only able to observe Kakashi's attack. The tiger seal is used for fire jutsu. This guy isn't toying around. He really plans on sending us back to the academy, he said. Leaf Village secret jutsu. 1,000 years of death. When Naruto sensed an intrusion in his rectum, his pelvis jerked forward, causing him to leap forward and tumble into the nearby stream. Sasuke's cheeks were burning hot, and she was unable to process what she had just witnessed. When Shikamaru said, "Hey," he poked Naruto in the asa. Geez, this guy is way too troublesome. He could only feel sorry for his rival. And that's all, she wrote. The emotion in this novel is spot on, Kakashi said, returning to his book, though I must say I am a little impressed. At the declaration, Sasuke and Shikamaru could only perspire. Breathing heavily, Naruto climbed out of the river slowly. As he turned a page, Kakashi remarked, "You know at this rate you aren't going to get a bell." Gritting his teeth in annoyance at being despised, Naruto said, "Grr, don't underestimate me." "I'm not. In fact, I think I'm overestimating you. Aren't you the one that defeated the traitor Mizuki?" Kakashi responded as he turned the page. "I mean, where did all your killer intent go? Or did you realize you're in over your head?" The man got no response from Naruto. Rather, 6 clones leapt from the river and hurled a barrage of shuriken and kunai at the Junin. Each of the 7 Narutos charged forward and made the kill. Kakashi went on the defensive and instantly pocketed his prized book. Both the original and each clone were quick and accurate, using a weapon or fist to aim at a kill zone on his body. Kakashi was starting to understand why the blonde boy had defeated Mizuki. Because it took a lot of chakra to create a single clone, sometimes more than even a Junin Hata. The shadow clone technique was prohibited. It was remarkable in and of itself that a genin could create 6 clones without dying. Not only was Naruto still alive, but he was also attacking. Not that he would ever tell anyone about Ida, and Kakashi was actually forced to defend himself from death. With a kunai in hand, Kakashi captured a fist aimed at Naruto's jugular and reversed it on the clone, killing the copy of Naruto. "I think I might have to have a chat with Naruto's academy instructors after this. His overall scores aren't matching what he actually can do," Kakashi said. Kakashi killed each clone one by one until only the original remained, after deftly avoiding or blocking every attack that was directed at him. "I've decided to be generous today and won't send any of you back to the academy," Kakashi said, jangling the 2 bells in front of his genin team. "It seems that all of you failed to get your objective." At that, Shikamaru's eyes narrowed. There must be a catch. Kakashi has always had more to say. Still angry that she had missed her chance to receive the bells, Sasuke simply glared at the man. However, Naruto, who had been tied to one of the log posts for attempting to get his lunch early, appeared bored. Not even a cheer when Sasuke briefly lost her temper, followed by her 2 male counterparts. Kakashi was practically on the ground laughing. "Oh well, I suppose since I'm dropping you all from the program I won't have to deal with your boring excitement." "What? You stated that we would only be returned to the academy if we failed," Sasuke shouted. "You're a liar." "What wonderful words from such a distinguished young woman. Did your parents fail to teach you how to behave politely around people in positions of authority?" As Sasuke ran straight at him, ready to cleave his head off, Kakashi realized he had pressed her final button. The older ninja had her pinned in a heartbeat, which only made Sasuke more irate. "Arrogance," Kakashi spat out. "If you can't even pass this easy test, how could I possibly consider allowing any of you to become genin?" In sheer rage, Sasuke fought to escape from under the man, but she was unable to overcome Kakashi's weight, crushing her smaller frame. "In any case, what was the purpose of this test? I was troubled by it right away. Why just 2 bells? Why did you phrase everything you said to us in that manner? Since this was meant to be a team survival mission, why put us against each other?" Shikamaru had relaxed and turned to staring at the clouds. The answer isn't hard, sensei. It's more or less a matter of having faith in your team to set aside and help. That's right. In addition to being a team exercise, this one is also passable. You could have gotten the bells from me if you had just come at me together, Kakashi said, pushing Sasuke's arm and driving the kunai she was still clutching into the back of her neck. You saw Naruto fighting directly in front of you and only decided to assist when it was convenient for you, Kakashi said, turning to face Naruto. Naruto. The boy said, averting his gaze from his sensei. Everything you do is by yourself. You decided to fight alone against a foe you couldn't possibly defeat on your best days, rather than attempting to locate your teammates and combine your strengths. And you didn't even try to do anything at all, Kakashi said, turning to face the Nara heir. You gave up before the test even started. Despite having figured it out, you want your life to be simple and for everything to be provided for you. I'm here to tell you that nothing ever is. I want you to kill Naruto or Sasuke die. Shikamaru. Kakashi chose to add a little flair for style and let out a little killing intent, which made the three genin go rigid. Do it, he said. Kakashi plunged the kunai into Sasuke, who yelled in agony as blood started to trickle down her neck. When Kakashi had given the order, Shikamaru had sat up and was now motionless, his eyes slowly moving toward the bound Uzumaki who was staring back at him. The training field had been quiet after a minute. Kakashi stopped using the ki and let Sasuke go. Then he stood up and walked to the ornamental stone that had been set aside. That's what happens, he said. Kakashi gazed fixedly at the stone. When someone makes a mistake, the others are left with an impossible choice to make. So we just need to collaborate as a team to pass. When Sasuke spoke, Kakashi's world fell apart, and the Junin turned to see Sasuke slicing Naruto loose. It seems you were right, Shikamaru, he said. Yes, but it's still problematic. Shikamaru shrugged angrily and sighed. I really thought one of you guys would have a bell by now, but I guess we were underestimating Sensei. Sasuke, what do you think you're doing? Naruto is receiving punishment for disobeying my orders. Maybe you wanted to go with him? In addition, the test is finished. You lost the opportunity to become genin, Kakashi said, growing irritated with these children. Hey, we worked out this test before you even arrived, I must say. As Sasuke spoke up, Shikamaru pointed to the clock and said, we decided to play along to wear you down because I figured you would use the old divide and conquer routine. Sensei, ninjas possess more than just taijutsu and ninjutsu. The smirk on Sasuke's face was pushing Kakashi up a wall, but nothing could lessen the shock that shook his entire being when he saw the clock's hands change from 12:15 back to 11:55. Genjutsu is something you should have learned to break out of in the academy, he said. You stated that we had to approach you with the intention of killing if we wanted to pass, correct? Finally, as he rubbed the spot where he had been bound at his wrists, Naruto said, well, then get ready to die, sensei. Sasuke and Naruto abruptly vanished from sight as a barrage of shuriken and kunai flew from their previous location. Intense heat shot toward Kakashi as he leapt out of the way, and when he looked up, he saw a wall of fire engulfing the entire field. Grand Fireball Jutsu in Fire Style. Water Style. Wall Jutsu Typhoon. In the nick of time, Kakashi had constructed a wall of water by quickly flashing through his hand signs. Jutsu for Shadow Possession. Shikamaru called out his family's famed jutsu and ensnared Kakashi in place. Naruto, this is your opportunity. Naruto flew in Kakashi's direction. Sensei, did you even consider the possibility that I might fail? Naruto shouted to him. Though he was aware that he shouldn't feel this way when confronted by a genin recruit, Kakashi knew something was wrong because the red glint in Naruto's eyes had caused his stomach to drop and his hair to stand on end. For a split second, Kakashi was terrified. Still imprisoned by Shikamaru's jutsu, the white-haired Jonin could only watch as the team he considered failures and unworthy of his time succeeded in his test, and in grabbing the bells Naruto's punch struck Kakashi squarely in the stomach, causing some discomfort. Still in disbelief, Kakashi turned to face Naruto, whose controlled, everyday-looking smile was concealing his genuine smile, which showed his true feelings. I am not going to lose, not to anybody anymore. Boring. These missions are all boring. Sasuke had had enough of caring for gardens, catching cats, and caring for the elderly in order to finally see how far she had come and how much more she needed to do to defeat him. She wanted a mission that would test her abilities. Being superior to everyone else was never the goal, even though it felt fantastic. No, the goal was to track down and murder her brother. With this attitude, Sasuke decided right away to request a more difficult mission when the three of them went in to receive their new one. Hokage-sama, she said, pausing, uncertain of how to proceed. With a hint of curiosity in his eyes, the third Hokage gazed at her. With greater assurance, she said, "Hokage-sama, I ask for a more challenging mission." Sasuke turned to face the Hokage, who returned her gaze and that of her group as he remembered his studentsa, or rather, a certain white-haired genin who had asked him the same question when he was the legendary Sennin sensei. His eyes became a little blurry as he reflected on the past. A smile appeared on the old man's face, but he soon had to face Sasuke because of reality. "Sasuke, I know you can handle more difficult missions, but this is more than about you. You are part of a team," he said to Naruto and Shikamaru. "I think we should ask your teammates whether or not they are ready for the missions that you want." Sasuke understood the old man's point. She had been totally preoccupied with herself and had completely forgotten that the team, not just herself, would face more difficult tasks. Naruto had no problem with this, but he felt that he was wasting all of his potential because he had wanted to practice some of the new jutsu that he had learned from the scroll. He was itching to fight, but his bloodlust had been silent. He also needed to strengthen himself because he had to kill and destroy an entire village while the old man was still in power. Despite not understanding the meaning of love, Naruto had some regard for the Hokage. That was the best explanation Naruto could come up with. The Hokage is the only person in the entire village who has ever shown concern for him. The lazy genius to the left of Naruto sighed, "Man, what a drag. First we passed the exam, and we got lucky enough to get all these easy missions." He quietly grinned. "To be honest, Hokage-sama, the girl is going to get those missions regardless of what I say. Why bother fighting something that is inevitable, troublesome?" The Hokage looked at Naruto. Taking that as a yes, he noticed that the boy was grinning as he looked at him. It was eerie. While it was odd to see Naruto smile, it wasn't because it was unsettling, it was the way he grinned. It was unnerving to see the smile that was etched for just a moment before Hiruzen called Naruto's name on numerous faces he would prefer to forget. He had witnessed the same smile. "Naruto." The boy's thoughts were abruptly interrupted when his name was called, bringing him back to the present. He nodded in agreement with the request after he had a clear understanding of the circumstances. After a few seconds of maintaining eye contact with Naruto, the Hokage picked up the missions list and looked through it for a mission that seemed suitable for the three of them. Hiruzen saw that every mission he would have sent the three of them on had already been taken. Although they had a C-rank mission, he didn't believe they were prepared for an escort mission to a foreign country. "It seems like there are no missions within your skill sets right now. Perhaps another time, Sasuke?" Before Naruto heard the Ice Princess speak, he saw Shikamaru yawn and Sasuke frown. "Can we take a mission outside of our skill set?" The Hokage looked at the girl and thought, she must really want a mission. He took a moment to think, glanced at the list, and briefly considered the C mission. "There is one mission available, but it would require you to do it with another genin team." Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Naruto looked at one another, debating whether or not to accept the mission with this condition. However, the Hokage went on, "The individual who made the request is only able to cover one squad." Following a brief period of silence, Sasuke said, "We can do the mission for free." Naruto gazed at the girl with a hint of surprise. Was this girl's desire to embark on this mission truly that great? The Hokage had a similar thought as he gazed at the girl. Actually, everyone had almost the same question about her, with the exception of Sasuke. Shikamaru feared she was crazy. "Now Sasuke," said the Hokage, grinning slightly, "what did we just talk about? You can't make decisions like that without the team's approval." With a sigh, Shikamaru nodded, indicating that he agreed with Sasuke's suggestion. To tell the truth, Shikamaru was growing tired of the missions they were given and was hoping for a little adventure. He also didn't think the Hokage would send them on a mission that would be too challenging. Although the lack of compensation is annoying, it's better than constantly having elderly people pinch his cheek. However, Naruto was a little reluctant to give his consent. He needed the money from this job as much as he wanted a more difficult mission. He was partially motivated to become a ninja because it paid well, and Naruto hardly had any money, which is a necessity. He still wanted to go on this mission, though, and he won't let the lack of compensation deter him. He nodded in agreement as he glanced at the third Hokage. That Shikamaru and Naruto would agree astounded the Hokage. He was taken aback by Naruto, particularly since a good salary would greatly improve his family's circumstances. The Hokage then turned to face them and yelled out Kakashi's name. "All right, but I am going to need your sensei's permission in order to void your payments and allow you to go on this C-rank mission," he said. "Yo," said the white-haired Junin, carrying a can of smoke into the office. Then, as the old man spoke to him, he stood at attention and turned to face the Hokage. "Kakashi, it seems like the genin under your care have volunteered to partner up with another genin team and go on a C-rank mission for free." The Junin was attempting to control his expression as he glanced at the three and then back to the Hokage, displaying a look of surprise. "These three are under your care, Kakashi, so the final say goes to you. Will you allow these three and you to go on this mission without any payment?" After giving the three a quick glance and giving it some silent thought, Kakashi's masked lips appeared to form a smile a typical sensei would vehemently object, but he chose to release the three after testing them and witnessing what they were capable of. After glancing at the three, Kakashi said, "All right," and moaned to himself loudly enough to be heard, "I'll give my consent for you drama queens and I to go on this mission, for free." Sasuke grinned, almost certain that Kakashi would say no. She had achieved her goal, but not without making some sacrifices. Although Naruto maintained his composure, he was barely able to control his emotions because he didn't want the others to know how he really felt. He adopted the ninja method of deceit because he understood that people are more unaware of his objectives the less they know about the real him. "Now, hold on," Hiruzen said, glancing at Sasuke's smile. "You can't leave until another cell agrees to partner with you. I need to find another genin cell that also takes this mission." At that moment, Sasuke disclosed her solution to the seeming issue. "Hokage-sama, I know Cell 10 is currently training this month. I am sure they will be more than willing to accept this mission." After giving it some thought, the Hokage nodded and said, "All right, Sasuke, please go and get Cell 10 inches." Sarutobi then turned to face the boy with the yellow hair and said, "Naruto, please give me a moment." With Naruto at his heels, the Hokage rose and started to head for the office exit. Looking a little worried for the boy, the Hokage asked, "Naruto, how have you taken to life as a ninja?" As he recalled Naruto's life circumstances, the Hokage's eyes flashed with sadness. He frequently questioned whether he was doing enough to make Naruto one of the village's greatest sources of joy and hope, but it appears that no matter how compassionate the Hokage is, there will always be 10 times as much destruction committed by others. Naruto didn't say anything because he didn't really have an answer for the elderly man. He simply trailed behind Sarutobi in silence. A look of great sympathy flashed across the Hokage's eyes as he looked at the boy. How much harm has been done to this boy? Sarutobi paused to catch his breath before continuing. At this point, Sarutobi halted his movement and turned to the boy, asking, "What goals do you have, Naruto?" As Naruto struggled to master his emotions, his heart skipped a beat before deciding on one shocking question. The boy's mind was racing with a million ideas. Was the Hokage aware of what Naruto really wanted? Naruto trailed off and remained silent, shuffling a little. "Yes, I want people to stop hating and hurting me. I want people to respect me for the person I am. I just want to be," he said. The elderly man gave Naruto a look and gently urged him to go on, but when he saw that Naruto would not say anything more, he grinned. Perhaps, striving to be the very best this village has to offer will be enough to gain respect of some of the villagers here. The Hokage paused before continuing, "Naruto, why not strive to become the Hokage, and truly make the people respect you by taking care of them and defending them?" "Why?" Naruto's slip of the tongue was so swift that he didn't even realize he had said it until a brief period of silence followed. Sarutobi's expression was one of obvious surprise as he gazed at the boy. The Hokage said, "I'm sorry," and asked Naruto to elaborate. With a hint of rage, Naruto asked the elderly man, "Why take care of and protect these people?" Since Sarutobi held that position and viewed it as a sign of power, Naruto wanted to ask the elderly man that question. After a brief period of silence, the Hokage questioned, "Why not?" Sarutobi eagerly awaited Naruto's impending response because he wanted to understand the significance of his query. Normally, Naruto would keep quiet, but Sarutobi was the only person he felt comfortable sharing some of the truth with. After inhaling, Naruto got started. Then a messenger ninja appeared out of nowhere and interrupted him. "Hokage-sama, Cell 10 is currently waiting for you at the office to receive their mission." After giving Naruto a nod, the Hokage said, "Come, let's not make them wait." When Sarutobi and Naruto arrived, Sasuke was waiting in the office with Cell 10, which was made up of most of the Princess 4 and their red-eyed sensei. Kurenai bowed curtly and said, "Hokage-sama, you want us to go on a mission with Cell 7? The Hokage nodded at the woman and turned to Cell 10. Cell 7 has requested to do a mission that is currently outside of their abilities, and they need another cell to do a joint mission. Ino, Sakura, and Hinata were glancing at Naruto inquisitively as Kurenai spoke to the Hokage. Naruto was certain that they were curious about his relationship with the elderly man. Additionally, he was certain that they would never learn. Kurenai politely asked Sarutobi, "What type of mission is it, Hokage-sama?" It was obvious that she understood the proper way to defer to authority, something Naruto struggled with. The Hokage responded to Kurenai, but everyone heard him say, "It's a relatively easy escort mission. You shouldn't be expecting any trouble, but since Sasuke, Naruto, and Shikamaru are newly instated genin, it is better doing a joint mission with another genin team." The fact that the Hokage would be sending them on a mission where fighting is not expected disappointed Naruto a little. But Sasuke was obviously more disappointed, as evidenced by the deep frown that was permanently etched on her face. Sasuke was about to object, but her three friends' quick glances convinced her otherwise. Kurenai asked, "Who are we escorting, if I may ask?" before looking around the room for anyone she didn't recognize. Ino exclaimed, "Yeah, is it a princess, or maybe a prince? Is it a merchant? A movie star?" She had anticipated that this mission would be significant. If not, why would they require two genin teams? The Hokage responded with a slight smile and a pipe in his mouth, saying, "Well, let's meet him now. Send in our guest." Everyone's eyes were on the office door, and there was a lot of excitement. As a man opened the door, a slurred voice said, "Aw shit, I am so wasted. What? These kids are supposed to protect me?" The enigmatic man with dark gray hair said, taking a swig of sake from his hand. Then he eyed everyone and stumbled a little into the room. They were treating him in the same way, and to everyone's dismay, especially Ino's, it turned out that Ino had no choice. The bridge builder, Tazuna, watched everyone intently. He was a good judge of skill and character, even when intoxicated, and he obviously didn't see any in the kids in front of him. Before he could see Kakashi reading Icha Paradise peacefully, he remarked, "This is what my money is good for, paying kids to do a man's job." He pointed to the masked ninja and said to the Hokage, "At least tell me you have him on the payroll." "I'm Sasuke." The girl with the black hair boldly introduced herself to the unkempt and somewhat obnoxious man. Sakura introduced herself by saying, "I'm Sakura," as she did. The blonde followed suit. "I'm Ino," she said. Hinata, the Hyuga heiress, said timidly, her gaze still fixed on the boy with the blonde hair. Naruto, was Naruto's response, as cool as he could be. The lazy genius said, "Shikamaru." To the man, Tazuna turned to Kakashi and said, "Yeah," as he glanced at the six people. "And I am drunk and disappointed," he added. "How much do I owe you?" As he pointed to Kurenai, Kakashi shook his head and said, "It's her you should be paying. I am offering my and my team's services for free." After observing Kurenai for a minute, Tazuna grinned. After giving her the money he owed for the mission, he turned to face the six genin who were staring at him. "Well, here ya go, babe," he said. "I'll give you 2 hours to prepare before I head out. Get your gear and eat your mommy's home-cooked dinner and get your asses to the gate by then." Then, in stunned silence, Tazuna opened the door and walked out of the room. Before even considering the mission, Naruto finished his third bowl of miso ramen at Ichiraku's. Although he assumed he didn't really need to bring Kid along, the fox was eager to run freely and stretch his legs. The idea of Kid running freely and contentedly in fields and yipping joyfully at the blonde master who, without his fault, made Kid lead a sedentary life made Naruto smile. It is not appropriate to confine a fox to a room in an apartment. Naruto asked Ayame, "Give me another bowl please," as he extended his hand to make the daily payment. Ayame placed the bowl down in front of Naruto and then waved the money he was holding in front of her away. "Naruto, you know that you don't have to pay. Your money is spread thin as it is. With paying for your ninja gear and other stuff, my father would kill me if he knew that I was accepting your money." Before starting to eat his fourth bowl of the day, Naruto shook his head and threw the cash directly onto the counter, since it always made him feel as though he had to repay the person for being kind to him. Naruto really didn't want to be treated like a charity case. Naruto got up to go because he felt good after the ramen, but Ayame stopped him and placed another bowl in front of him. "I heard you finally got an escort mission. Naruto here, have a fifth bowl on the house." The idea that she had poisoned the bowl made Naruto a little suspicious, but then he recalled that Ayame and her father had been kind to him ever since they had seen him in an alleyway almost starving to death when he first tried to live on the streets. Even though he knew he couldn't trust the two because they were only being kind to him out of sympathy and not out of goodwill, he couldn't help but think that he might have fled the village and been killed already if he hadn't had them. However, Naruto had already attempted suicide several times and had failed, so it wouldn't really be a bad thing. Naruto, who never turns down food, took a seat again and started eating. As Ayame observed the boy, he reminded her of the brother she never had as a willing taste tester. He assisted her in perfecting the art of making ramen. She was troubled by the memory of him devouring everything she placed in front of him. How famished had Naruto been to consume everything that was presented to him in that manner? The idea that the boy would receive the same level of cold treatment from the villagers seemed unreal. People would always leave as soon as Naruto arrived to eat here, sometimes even leaving the steaming ramen bowls on the counter. The claims made about Naruto were well known. The rumors persisted and even made it to her ears. Regardless of the law, the third Hokage passed. The fact that he was the nine-tailed fox was not lost on her. Despite this, she felt more sympathy for Naruto because she knew that he had no idea why he had no parents or why the villagers despised him. Ayame was startled out of her reverie by the sound of the ramen bowl striking the counter and noticed Naruto's contented expression. She grinned. It was unusual to see such a happy expression on that boy's face, and she was glad to hear that he enjoyed her food. In an attempt to get Naruto's attention, Ayame said, "Hey, Naruto. Be careful, okay? I don't want to lose my favorite customer." After giving her an odd look, Naruto nodded slowly. Since it was only an escort mission, he wasn't really sure what he needed to be cautious of, but he knew she wanted him to say that he would. Naruto wasn't such a callous and heartless jerk to turn down her request. Following their conversation, Naruto departed to head to his apartment. No matter how simple the mission was, he had to prepare for it. When the Hyuga heiress learned that she would be going on a mission with her crush, she felt both anxious and pleasantly delighted. She couldn't control the butterflies in her stomach, even though she had never had the courage to confess to him or even to have a full conversation with him. She didn't know exactly what to do and had 2 hours to get ready for any scenario she might encounter with him. When Hiyashi entered her room and the door slid open, her panicked thoughts were put to rest. "Hinata, you wanted to speak to me?" Hinata glanced at her father and gave a hesitant response because she was worried about the direction of the conversation. "Yes, Odo-san, I just received a C rank mission. I'll be leaving in 2 hours. When are you expected to come back?" Hinata fumbled with her fingers, attempting to form the correct words. She said, "About 2 weeks. Hiyashi's voice grew icy, and his eyes grew repulsed by his daughter's weakness. "Do not humiliate the clan. You may not be a proper Hyuga, but even a failure such as you should be able to complete a C rank mission." The leader of the Hyuga clan left her room after making that scathing remark, leaving a distraught Hinata sitting there, thinking about how much of a letdown she is to her father. She constantly tried to win his admiration and earn his respect as a potential clan leader, but despite her best efforts, her weak body and reserved demeanor were not accepted by him. In a strange way, she felt jealous of the boy she was crushing on because she frequently pondered what it would be like to not have filthy parents. She occasionally prayed to whatever god or spiritual entity existed to rid her of her father and give her the courage to confront the boy she had dreamed about since he had rescued her from multiple bullies when they were kids. Hinata was wise enough to know that it would take magic alone for that wish to come true one day. Hinata would frequently ponder what Naruto would do during extremely depressing moments. Both were viewed as failures, and she saw them as kindred spirits. The people they try to impress despise both of them. He was similar to her, which, to be honest with herself, was one of the reasons she was drawn to him. She enjoyed being there for him whenever he encountered difficulties and watching him triumph over them. She frequently fantasized about doing the same herself and supporting him the next time he had to overcome an obstacle. She viewed this mission as a simple first step toward bridging the distance between herself and the boy she loved. She had to prove herself to Naruto and to herself, so it was more than just a C-rank mission. Thinking of that, she made the seemingly thousandth decision to be bolder and braver than she was at the moment. She had the very naive belief that everything was possible with love, even though she knew it might be a pointless endeavor. Naruto was prepared and packed ahead of time. He didn't have many possessions, and the ones he did have were not particularly meaningful to him. He could live without the frayed comic books he retrieved from the trash and his frog wallet that Ayame and her father gave her. Kit was yipping joyfully as Naruto started to exit the apartment. The fox was the one thing Naruto truly cherished. Without a second thought, he could let the world burn, but if the fox abandoned him or had been harmed, he would rip the offender a new asshole and make holes in other places. After taking his keys out of his pocket and locking the door behind the black pup, Naruto asked, "Are you ready to go?" He hurried to the street toward the village's main gate, where Kit yipped impatiently at him. Running after his pet, Naruto shouted, "Hey, slow down," to the black blur. Finally catching up to the fox at the gate while panting, Naruto discovered that Sasuke, Hinata, Ino, Sakura, and Kurenai were waiting for him along with the other mission members. In addition, he saw that Tazuna, the inebriated jerk, was still missing. "He is running late, so he tells us to be here in 2 hours. I wonder if he is related to Kakashi-sensei." Kit was contentedly soaking up all of the attention he was receiving from the girls while seated directly next to the group. He hurried to Naruto and yipped with excitement as he saw his master approaching. "Naruto? Is this fox yours?" Ino asked, nearly incredulously. Like Ino, Kurenai and Sakura felt the same way. After giving her a menacing look, Naruto answered in a chilly tone. "Yeah, he is. What's it to you?" Since Naruto obviously didn't want to discuss it with her, Ino shrugged and ignored it. Seeing anything get excited about Naruto was strange. Although they never gave a clear explanation, her parents always advised her to avoid the child because he was a negative influence. Shikamaru yawned and sat down on the ground, interrupting the awkward stalemate between Naruto and Ino. Knowing full well that Kakashi would be very late, he made the decision to take a nap. It took several more minutes before Tazuna showed up. After saying, "Well, it seems like everybody except the white-haired guy is here, let's go," Tazuna prepared to leave the village, but Kurenai intervened. "We should wait for Kakashi." Tazuna glanced at Kurenai and opened his mouth. "Look babe, if you ninja folk are as fast you claim, it should be no problem to catch up to us, right? After all, I am an old man being guarded by a bunch of snot-nosed brats who think they are tough shit because they have a headband and a woman with red eyes." The remark made Kurenai's fist clench, but she said nothing. She glared at Tazuna with intense hatred, her jawline set. Tazuna growled before he resumed his stride. "Look, babe, I am the client, and I hired you to escort me to my destination. I want to move, and when I want to move, you better move with me," he said. "Girls, we'll be following in the tree line while Cell 7 guards Tazuna-san directly. If anything happens, we'll have the element of surprise on our side," Kurenai said. Glancing at the 3 girls that comprised Cell 10, she hardly anticipated any danger, but this mission gave the Genins good stealth training, and she wasn't going to pass up a learning opportunity because there wasn't any danger. Kakashi caught up to them 2 minutes into the stroll. Kurenai arrived and said, "Kakashi, why were you late?" Kakashi grinned as he looked up at Kurenai, who was expertly concealed in the trees. "You know the path of life better than I do, Kurenai. Sometimes it leads you astray for hours on end." Naruto was growing disinterested since there would be no fighting at all. The Hokage was correct when he predicted that this mission would be rather simple. The puddle they were approaching was the most intriguing aspect of this mission thus far, but he still expected his first time outside the village to be exciting. Weeks had passed since the last rain. There was a problem. He looked around and realized that no one else had noticed it. Shikamaru was too bored to pay attention to anything. Kit had wandered off to explore. Kakashi was reading Icha Icha Paradise. Tazuna was sipping sake while strolling, and Sasuke appeared to be focused on keeping an eye out for enemies in the brush. Naruto continued to focus on the puddle. Nothing was happening as of yet. The puddle didn't move even after they passed it. Then it took place. With a chain tying him to his companion, who was waiting calmly for their victim to be caught, a man shot out of the puddle in Kakashi's direction. Kakashi exclaimed, "What the?" as the chain twisted viciously around him, penetrating his skin through his clothes. Kakashi was ripped to pieces in front of Naruto's eyes as the 2 figures pulled the chain before anyone could respond. Naruto was wounded just above the forearm by the 2 figures that materialized behind him and slashed at him with their poisoned claws. A shuriken whizzed past Naruto's face and grabbed the chain, pinning it to a tree before they could land any more blows. After securing the chain with a kunai, Sasuke advanced to launch an attack. Shadow Possession Jutsu. Shikamaru's shadow reached out and stopped the attacker in his tracks as the 2 parted ways, with one continuing to fight Naruto and Sasuke and the other slicing for Tazuna, who was now under the protection of Shikamaru and the entire Cell 10 team. The attacker exclaimed, "The hell?" but was unable to move as the female Genin's shuriken and kunai flew at him in a flurry. Shikamaru released his jutsu, causing his body to fall slack as the projectiles embedded themselves throughout it and blood to flow from his wounds. By blocking the older ninja's poisoned gauntlet with kunai, Naruto and Sasuke both managed to avoid attack after attack. Sasuke attempted to spin away from another attack, but she felt a tremendous pain shoot through her back and realized she had been hit. She gritted her teeth and spun around, jamming her kunai into the enemy's shoulder blade as he screamed in agony. Finally spotting an opening, Naruto moved in to make the kill. Kakashi, who had miraculously risen from the dead, closed the other nin before Naruto could defend himself or even launch an attack. Naruto, who was experiencing excruciating pain in his forearm, saw that Sakura, Ino, and the others were caring for Sasuke's injuries. Nobody even considered treating Naruto's poisoned wound. "Sasuke has been poisoned. Quickly disinfect her wound and feed her the anti-poison pills." Kakashi glanced at the 2 assailants while everyone else was preoccupied with caring for the princess with the black hair. Before turning to face Naruto, Kakashi remarked, "These men are Chunin. This shouldn't be a C-rank mission." Remembering that the blonde had also been poisoned, the masked ninja asked, "You okay?" with a hint of worry. The girls turned to face Naruto, whom they had forgotten entirely, and watched him stab the wound with a kunai while giving them the iciest look they had ever seen. With his glare fixed entirely on the girls, Naruto bled out the poison. "I'm fucking fine, sensei." As he spoke to Tazuna, Kakashi fixed him with a fierce gaze. "So, are you going to tell us what this mission is really about, or are we going to have to abandon you?" Kurenai was furious that her girls had killed someone during their first outing outside the village. "Kakashi, what the hell? Why didn't you step in sooner? They aren't ready for something like this." She said she was worried that the girl's mental health might be harmed by something like this in contrast to the other villages. Konoha aims to develop soldiers with a heart who kill when necessary but not needlessly, rather than turning them into mindless killers. Kakashi chuckled slightly and said, I didn't see you stepping in Kurenai, but he continued to look at Tazuna, indicating that he didn't really care about her viewpoint. Now, suddenly said Kakashi, are you going to answer me? I'd hate for you to have to fight the next assassin on your own once they find out these two have failed. They will send a stronger one to finish the job, and seeing as two of my students are injured, who are risking their lives for free by the way, you better have a good answer. Sweating profusely, Tazuna's anxious glances darted around the room. Waiting for an excuse, he took a deep breath and began to speak. Please, you have to help me, thousands of lives depend on me. Kakashi said in a rough voice, that's not the answer I was looking for, and you don't want me to find out from the assassin, do you? He slowly reached into his pack, hoping to frighten Tazuna into providing him with the information he sought before he cracked. Tazuna's gaze followed his hand intently. Alright, Tazuna said, I'll tell you, but I can't do it right now. This isn't the best place to discuss such things. Can you wait for just a bit longer until we get closer to the wave? Kakashi took out Icha Paradise, his favorite book, and started turning to the page he had left off of, grinning behind his mask. Kakashi, who had gotten the better of Tazuna, said, okay, we will continue to escort you until then, in a smug tone. Tazuna muttered under his breath, smug bitch, but he was grinning. What the white hair had accomplished impressed him greatly. Then, the bridge builder saw that the assassin Kakashi had captured was beginning to come to. Kakashi said, ah, he is awake. As he walked up to the Chunin, Maizu opened his eyes and became conscious of his surroundings. His vision was blurry at first, but it gradually sharpened as he caught sight of the masked man. He stood directly in front of Kakashi, who looked into his face and said, well, Chunin, do you mind telling me who your contractor was? Kakashi grinned at the ninja and maintained a cheerful exterior. The Maizu were about to say or do anything when Kakashi spoke up once more. Kakashi leaned down directly in front of him and grinned as she said, you know, if you don't tell me, I might just kill you. Maizu made an effort to move his body, but he was unable to muster the energy to do so. Sorry, but being a Junin, I think I know a thing or two about how to drain the energy from my opponents. Naruto looked on in mild awe. Although he had always believed Kakashi to be a reformed ninja and capable of saving his life, Kakashi was now displaying his strength. That was the power Naruto desired. Naruto was eager to learn the skill because it was practical. In addition to maintaining appearances, he may have a real reason for keeping Kakashi around. I ain't telling ya nothing, exclaimed the Chunin, who was terrified of the ninja in masks. When Kakashi turned to face Maizu, his expression softened. Are you sure? Think of how much pain I will put you through if you don't tell me. Are you completely sure you want to live through that? He asked. You know, I will pay you double what your employer is paying you. This man, Kakashi said to Tazuna, is very rich, and he can afford it. How else do you think he got 2 teams? I'll even let your brother go. Tazuna opened his mouth to say, wah, but Kakashi's expression told him to stop. Kakashi sighed and started to reach into his kunai pouch after hearing nothing from the Chunin. Sorry it had to be this way, but you know how the life of a ninja is. Bringing the kunai close to Maizu's face, Kakashi gazed intently into his eyes. After placing his hand on Maizu's delicate neck and holding it there for a moment, he started to stop. Alright, I'll tell you. Maizu's voice betrayed his fear more than his perspiration. After taking the kunai off Maizu's neck, Kakashi remarked, there we go now, tell us who your employer is. Maizu started to say, okay, just please don't kill me. His name is Ga, but was cut off when kunai was thrown. The kunai struck Maizu's neck, causing him to go limp and fall to the ground. Only the astonished expressions of the genin who had witnessed the incident were visible for what felt like minutes. Sasuke assumed a defensive position, her gaze fixed on the direction from which the kunai had been thrown. Kakashi declared, whoever is gone, as he raised his head from the corpse, probably killed this one to ensure that we would remain in the dark as much as possible. Kakashi approached the other deceased brother and gave him a thorough examination. He then went ahead and looked through the body to see if there was anything that could provide more information about their co-workers. As he spoke to the girls, Kakashi's gaze stayed fixed on the body. Congratulations, you just killed somebody. The statement was followed by a thick silence. Hinata, Sakura, and Ino were shocked to learn that they had just killed someone. In stunned silence, they stood as Kakashi gazed at them. As she gazed at the Chunin's corpse, Ino stammered nervously, but we couldn't, I mean, we oh my gee, we didn't mean to. This isn't a game, this is life or death. He isn't going to get back up just because you feel bad. You'll have to live with the fact that you ended a life. His hopes and dreams are over because of you, and you'll be expected to do it again and again in name of country of village. You wanted to be ninja, and this is being ninja, killing and being killed. That's what you wanted, to be killers. Kurenai was horrified by the Junin's behavior and exclaimed, Kakashi, they're just children. As soon as they put on that headband, Kurenai, they stopped being children. You should know better, Kakashi stated. He got up, finding nothing useful on the Chunin. Oh, and Kurenai, the reason why I chose not to step in the fight earlier was because I needed to know if the ninja that attacked us were after Tazuna or not. Kakashi said, we should probably head out, we don't want any more trouble than we can handle right now, as he started to move forward. Kurenai added, girls, get back in formation, hoping to distract them from the idea of killing. Watch out for anything out of the ordinary. If you do see anything, give the signal. The girls looked at each other, breaking eye contact with the body, but they positioned themselves in the trees, leaving only Kakashi, Naruto, Shikamaru, Tazuna, and Sasuke on the road. With incredible speed, Ito Akihiro darted through the trees. He was returning to his boss to tell him what had happened to the demon brothers. Akihiro was thinking of a story he could tell Gato, since all Gato needed to know was that the two had been killed. He didn't see the need to tell him the truth about what had actually happened, but someone else needed to know. The Merc reached his destination after traveling continuously for a few minutes. Since Gato's complex was the only structure in the Land of Waves that appeared to be in good shape, it was very simple to find Gato Company. The company's logo was displayed on the tall building. Akihiro went through the rooms after entering through the back door, but Waraji, one of Gato's personal bodyguards, stopped him. The bodyguard with the sword halted the Merc and said, state your business. He detested this security nonsense. Oh, come on, man. You know exactly why I am here. I can't believe you have to stop me every time I come in, complained Akihiro. You know the rules, and nobody gets in unless I hear a good reason, the bodyguard snorted, obviously amused that he had so much irritated the Merc. Akihiro responded smugly, feeling extremely proud of his statement, you are giving me a good reason to kick your ass right now. He added, I am here to report the fate of the Demon Brothers as well as give him intel on who is guarding the old man. Waraji began, what did you say, Basta? But Gato's voice interrupted him. Let him in. As they passed the samurai, the ninja gave him a smug look. Akihiro enjoyed outwitting that motherfucker when Akihiro was younger. The two had a history of animosity. The brown-haired Merc turned to face Gato and closed the door. Despite being shorter than most, the man known as Gato exuded strength. Gato was not strong, or at least not strong on his own, so that power should not be confused with strength. He exuded power and had a lethal charisma that made people dreadful. Gato sat in a chair and asked, well, what happened? His fingers were linked together, and his hands were clasped together. By the looks of it, those bastards didn't make it. If they did, they would be here collecting the money. Akihiro said, yeah, they died. The drunk got some leaf ninja to guard him, 2 Junin and 6 genin by the looks of it, addressing Gato directly. Interesting. How did he get that much money to pay for 2 Junin and 6 genin? Surely he doesn't have that much money to pay for that amount of ninja. When Akihiro said, it seems that one cell is doing this mission for free. I mean, how crazy are they to do a mission like this for free? He nearly burst out laughing, but Gato's expression stopped him in his tracks. Gato shuddered at the idea of having to deal with that man. Well, it seems that we might have to send you and him in, he said, since he didn't want to discuss terms with the Demon of the Mist. He had secretly hoped that the Demon Brothers would be sufficient. Hey, Akihiro said, you know Zabs alone won't be able to beat the 2 Junin and 6 genin. Some of the genin are strong as well. I want to tag along. He is in the basement training. Get him, and set up an ambush in the Land of the Waves territory, Gato said, nodding, granting him permission. With a small smirk, Akihiro left the room and passed Waraji. He was going to the basement, downstairs. Akihiro sensed that this was some serious training even before he stepped into the room. When he opened the door, he saw a pile of dummies with kunai still lodged in some of them, others that had been cut in half and beheaded. The so-called Demon of the Hidden Mist pulled out a kunai he had just thrown into the dummy and asked, what do you want? The Demon Brothers were killed. Gato wants to set up an ambush for the target and the ninja that are protecting him. Zabuza asked abruptly, grinning, how many? 2 leaf Junin and 6 leaf genin. Consider them dead. Whoa, hold up, man, I just want you to know that I am coming along as well to help. Don't get in my way. Now that's the Zabs I know. Akihiro grinned. With a death-threatening glance, Zabuza said, don't call me that again. When he and the ninjas arrived in the Land of Waves, Tazuna said, escort me to my house. I will tell you what this is all about there. After several minutes of walking, Naruto started to feel uneasy. Although it was fleeting and weak, Naruto had a feeling that something was concealed in that bush. Sasuke and Shikamaru were warned of potential danger when Naruto immediately threw a kunai in the direction of the bush. Naruto was shocked when nothing happened for a few minutes because he was certain that someone was present. Naruto approached the bush cautiously and noticed that it was completely empty. He had been wrong. He wasted both there and his time by making a big deal out of it in addition to feeling bad about it himself. Sasuke asked the boy, "Naruto, what was that? Was there anybody there?" As she pulled out a kunai and moved closer to Tazuna, she became a little more at ease when she noticed the boy shaking his head. Shikamaru lowered his guard and uttered the words, "Man, troublesome." Naruto sensed the presence once more on the opposite side of the road, in a bush this time now more cautious. He threw the kunai quickly and waited patiently. The sound of rustling bushes and a sudden stop indicated that it had struck something this time. The group was ready for any potential ninja attack, but Naruto's move was completely unexpected. The rabbit was white. The white coat was now stained with blood from Naruto's kunai strike. Kit, who had hurried back to investigate the disturbance, let out a startled yip. Since Naruto had never dealt with dying animals before, he was clueless about what to do. He turned to face Sasuke. Kakashi paused to look at the boy and said, "Naruto, there is nothing we can do. Get the kunai and continue on." The masked Junin saw something odd about the rabbit. Its fur was white. It's not winter, even though rabbits only get white fur in the winter. This rabbit is domestic. What is this rabbit doing here? If it is domestic, could it be a sub? Kakashi pondered for a moment before his eyes widened. When Kakashi realized what the rabbit meant for the group, he abruptly yelled, "Get down!" Not a second too soon. Immediately after saying that, a massive sword whirled through the air above them and lodged itself in a tree in front of Kakashi. Good reflexes, but that is to be expected when you are facing one of the best ninja of the leaf, Kakashi of the Sharingan. Sharingan? The three genin pondered. Sasuke's eyes were suspicious of Kakashi. There were very few members of the Uchiha clan with that lineage. Could he be? With her eyes still fixed on her sensei, the princess with the raven hair pondered. On the hilt of the enormous sword, a figure emerged. One Zabuza Momochi was depicted. He had his back to the team and was staring at Kakashi over his shoulder. Knowing this man, Kakashi stiffened. The monster of the hidden mist was Zabuza. He was brought up to murder everyone, including his fellow students. Zabuza. After surveying the group, the demon of the hidden mist discovered that there were 3 genin. According to Akihiro, there were 2 Junin and 6, which implied that the others were concealed somewhere. To get the remaining ninja to come out, Zabuza threw 10 kunai in 10 different directions and said, come out, I know there are more of you." Between Kakashi and Tazuna, Cell 10 fell out of the trees and onto the road. Akihiro appeared directly next to Zabuza and exclaimed, "Huh? See Zabs, I told you there was a hottie here. Red-eyed beauty she is," Akihiro said. As Kurenai saw Akihiro staring at her with a dismal expression, she tightened her hold on the kunai and said, "Hinata, Ino, Sakura, go into the swastika position, protect Tazuna with your life." "Follow their lead, Cell 7, Kakashi said, while maintaining eye contact with Zabuza. "If half of what I heard about you is true, I can't beat you in my current state." As Kakashi started to lift his headband, Naruto noticed that his left hand was reaching up to it. Akihiro eyed her genin team and said, "Hottie, you are going to battle me. You might want to leave the kids behind, don't you? You don't want them to die, do you?" Kakashi revealed his Sharingan to Zabuza and said, "Naruto, Shikamaru, Sasuke, whatever you do, do not leave formation, do not join the battle, do not leave Tazuna. Let's fight," he said. After hurling a kunai at Akihiro, Kurenai said, "Same goes for you, Cell 10. Grabbing his sword, Zabuza withdrew it from the tree after landing on top of the water. The demon of the mist started making a hand signal as Kakashi watched the action. His Sharingan concentrated on the hand's movements and examined them. Hidden Mist Jutsu. The leaf ninja were suddenly surrounded by a mist, and they soon started to lose their sense of direction. Using her chakra sense to find Akihiro's location through the thick fog, Kurenai charged him. She was ready to attack. Holding her kunai abruptly, the fog lifted and she found herself somewhere else. Akihiro said, "Y'all like it? I thought it would be better to split you from the group, that way we can have some real fun," as he appeared directly in front of her. The ninja who opposed Kurenai said, "Water kunai replication." While making the proper hand signals, he grinned and 10 kunai materialized in his hand. Akihiro abruptly threw the kunai at the woman, saying, "But my village put me through hell to train me to become a deadly killer. I ain't sure what you leaf folks do to prepare for the life of a ninja." As soon as the 10 kunai saw them, She immediately headed for the Junin, who had already prepared her hand signals. Kurenai concealed herself on a tree branch and swapped herself out for a log just before they struck. As she moved through the trees to gain a favorable position, the Genjutsu master proclaimed, "Illusion clone jutsu," and sent a clone into the fray. She saw the assassin confront the illusion clone and found the ideal location to observe him. The clone is quite good at sounding and looking like the real thing, but since it is only an illusion, it cannot harm the opponent in any way. The clone was evading everything Akihiro could throw at it. Akihiro interrupted, saying, "Come on, fight won't you? I am tired of you dodging." Kurenai grinned while getting the kunai ready. She continued to watch the clone maneuver around the opponent, keeping only it out of the punch's reach, while attaching paper bombs to the bladed weapons. She threw the kunai after she was done adding the tripwire, and they became part of the group, essentially making a tripwire mine that was only waiting to be set off by an unaware victim. In this instance, Akihiro would be the innocent victim since he was too preoccupied with the clone to be aware of his surroundings. He was growing impatient that she wouldn't defend herself and that he couldn't strike her. He continued to throw punches. At first, he attempted an uppercut, but the clone gracefully sidestepped and stayed out of his reach. "This bitch," Akihiro thought as he continued to throw punches at her, some of which seemed to phase through her because she was moving too quickly to be caught, as though he were punching a ghost. He gave her a few quick jabs to the abdomen, but once more, it seemed to phase right through her. He quickly figured it out. After a few more examples, he was currently facing a clone of the Kurenai. He began to look at the treetops, ignoring the clone, figuring that the Junin must be somewhere hidden there. As he continued to study the treetops, Akihiro remarked, "Hey, sending in a clone to distract me is weak. Are you sure you even deserve the title of Junin? I think the way you fight is rather childish." Abruptly, a paper bomb-wielding kunai landed very close to Akihiro's feet. Akihiro took note of the paper bombs and backed up toward the tripwire. Everything went as she had planned. Yes, the clone thing was a little surprising because she had assumed that it would buy her more time to come up with a suitable plan to put this man down. She threw the kunai to lure the assassin toward the tripwire to end his life. After realizing that time had passed and that he had seen through her clone, she waited calmly while the paper bombs were detonated when Akihiro's left foot caught and broke the wire. All that was left of the explosion was a burned patch of grass. This was odd, Kurenai thought, because the explosion was too far away to totally destroy the body. The voice was familiar, and Kurenai felt a kunai pierce her back. "Nice try, but the only thing you managed to defeat was my water clone that I created while we were still in the mist," the voice said. Kurenai moved her legs and body almost instinctively to kick him away. Akihiro threw back, stunned that the Junin had managed to launch an attack while hurt, and the action was successful. Despite the fact that he had stabbed her with a kunai coated in a unique poison that gradually sapped chakra, Akihiro's face lit up with a smile. She would die in 12 hours if she didn't receive the right care. Kurenai still threw her final few kunai at the assassin. In spite of this, she started making a number of hand signals as soon as she threw the kunai. Genjutsu. Trees of a million sufferings. Akihiro's gaze lingered on Kurenai's smug face as he felt trees suddenly envelop him. He knew it was over for him the moment he felt that Akihiro was repeatedly impaled by the tree branches, which transformed into spears because of the twigs, stubs, and full-size branches that punctured his body. He felt as though his skin was being removed continuously. A branch had pushed itself into Akihiro's mouth and exploded through the back of his throat. Just as he was about to scream, he said nothing at all as the illusion master walked toward him. Kurenai approached her Genjutsu's victim while holding a discarded kunai. His mouth hung open to let out a silent scream, but he was absolutely rigid. He was aware of her movements and his gaze followed her, but he was powerless to stop her. He had expended all his energy fighting a clone, and now he was caught in her web of illusion. Breathing heavily, the red-eyed Junin staggered up to Akihiro with excruciating pain in her back. She slowly raised the kunai. Kurenai said, "I am sorry, but you must die," as she got ready to take his life. Wait, please," Akihiro began, barely able to speak. "I don't want to die, please." Kurenai had decided to kill him, even if it meant losing her own life, so the pleading words didn't help him. "I'll tell you everything," he pleaded frantically. "Please, spare me, I don't want to die." "There is nothing you can say that will ever spare your life," Kurenai said, pressing the kunai to his neck. "I don't want to don't key." It was over in a single, smooth motion. Kurenai had prevailed, and the begging ceased. Kurenai pivoted and walked back towards the others. Her back began to sting more and more with each step, making it harder to take. "Poison that damn," she said, in recognition as her eyes grew wide. Kurenai knew she was running out of time, so she pushed past the others just in time to witness a masked nin vanish with Zabuza's lifeless, limp body in his hands. Although Kakashi appeared more worn out, He was fine overall. As she swung her ruby eyes toward the genin, she noticed that the team was still intact and still protecting Tazuna. Genin from Kakashi appeared worn out and disheveled. What happened, Kakashi? Kurenai gave an understanding nod. Hunter Nin, she said. And the genin? Kurenai noticed Kakashi nodding at the blonde genin who had separated from the others, holding his headband in his hands before readying it to his forehead. They're fine, a few close calls, but they proved themselves today, all of them, Kurenai said. We show. Kurenai sank to her knees, her 3 genin running to her side as she clutched at her heart. All 3 of them cried out simultaneously, Sensei, as Kurenai's back wound was eventually shown to the group. Poisoned, we'll have to move fast. Cell 7 form up on Tazuna, we're moving out now. Kakashi glared as he swiftly examined her injury. Cell 10 avoided the shadowing strategy and circled Tazuna in formation in front of Tazuna. Kurenai was leaning on Kakashi, almost unconscious. As Naruto looked ahead in the distance, he saw Tazuna's house. Naruto thought the 2-story cottage-themed home was rather typical when he was bored and wandered around Konoha. He had noticed similar kinds of houses on the outskirts as soon as they approached the house. A very pleasant scent filled the air, and a couple of stomachs ached to discover what exactly was luring them in. Tazuna grinned and remarked, "Ah, my daughter must be cooking her best dish." He had been quenching his hunger while holding his reliable bottle of sake. His stomach growled for the delicious food his daughter was cooking in his house now that he had run out of liquid courage. In reference to the ninja escort team, the bridge builder said, "My daughter is the sweetest thing on this planet, and I am sure that she will be gracious enough to let you eat from my table. After all, you did save my ass." The scent was enticing as they approached the house's front door. As soon as Tazuna opened the door, the pleasant scent that permeated the air around them intensified. "Princess, I'm H," Tazuna said abruptly before being struck in the face by a frying pan. When she saw who was with her father, the feminine voice froze in place. "You stupid idiot. Do you want to die? Why'd you leave when you know that man is after?" she exclaimed. With a hint of blush on her face, Tsunami bowed her head in shame. "I am sorry, had I known they were there. You wouldn't have tried to rearrange my face with the frying pan?" Tazuna said with a little annoyance in his. "Tsunami, these are the Konoha ninja that were escorting me back with them. I was as safe as if you were guarding me right now. They're hungry." The group looked at her, and she looked at them. She moved aside and opened her house to them. "Please come in." Tsunami led Kakashi to a spare bedroom where they could keep Kurenai while she was being treated and rested after the others had entered. Reluctant to venture into uncharted territory, Naruto lingered outside on occasion. The residents of Konoha also allowed him to stay in their homes. He frequently had to tend to the fresh wounds he got while he was inside. He discovered that he should always be on guard around people, even those who appeared to be the most compassionate. There are many snakes in the world that only wish to inflict pain and suffering on people who rely on them. He instinctively looked around warily as he stepped through the doorway. They were barely able to fit around the table by this point. With every chair out, Naruto sat down and turned to face Tazuna as she spoke to Tsunami. As soon as the food was set out in front of them, the room began to smell delicious. The plate in front of Naruto contained a nice hot broth of liquid that Naruto had never seen before, along with some salmon that had been cut up and seasoned with some local spices from the land of the waves. Everyone except Naruto yelled, "Itadakimasu," as they sank in, unaware of the nature of this food. Naruto hesitated. He rarely ate anything other than ramen because he was on a limited budget. As he tried to figure out how to eat what was in front of him, he looked around at the others. He watched as Ino ate the salmon after dipping it in the liquid. As soon as she began to chew, a contented expression came to her face after imitating the action. Naruto tasted something sweet as soon as he put the fish in his mouth. He kept chewing and soon discovered that the sweetness was short-lived as the flavor turned into salmon. But Tsunami didn't cook enough, so she had to return to the kitchen and quickly make something while the others ate what she had intended to serve Inari and herself. The blonde was too busy enjoying the food in front of him to care. He dipped the salmon in the liquid. After chopping it up into small pieces, he made the most of what he had, relishing every little morsel. Tsunami had brought out some bowls of rice shortly after Naruto was done. Tazuna cleared his throat and started talking after everyone had finished eating. "All right, I think I owe you an explanation," he nervously said to Kakashi. "I am in danger for trying to save the people from the clutches of a power-hungry and very deadly man named Gato. He runs a shipping company, but his business is a front for all of the illegal cargo. He ships to organizations everywhere because the wave is such a small and isolated island. He set his eyes on taking it, and within a matter of months he completely decimated the country's economy." Tazuna was observing the ninjas' faces as he related to them how Gato was robbing the nation of its citizens and using threats and corpses to obtain free labor. Ino, Sakura, and Hinata exchanged a horrified glance. Kakashi looked at the elderly man and asked, "Why is he after your life?" Tazuna took a deep breath and responded, "I am currently building a bridge that will connect us to the Fire Nation. If that bridge is complete, we will have absolutely no need for Gato or his company. I am in charge of the project, and if I get killed, I fear that the men that are helping me will lose their will to do so. Please, you have to protect me for just a bit longer until I can complete the bridge. It is nearly done, but I am not sure it will be complete without me. They won't do you any good. He will kill you just like he killed Dad." A small boy stood in the doorway of the kitchen, tears welling up in his eyes. Tazuna glanced at the boy and said, "Inari." What he said made his eyes sad. "Please Grandpa, don't go against that man. Please, I don't want to lose you like I lost my dad. He tried to go against him and he died." "Oh, Inari, I can't give up. Besides, I won't die." Tazuna replied, "I have these wonderful ninja guarding me." Inari started crying uncontrollably and shook his head, not believing Tazuna. "They don't understand. They are from a powerful country. They don't understand what it is like to have nothing. They have a good Lee." "Shut your damn mouth." Everyone's gaze shifted to Naruto. Ino started to say, "What the hell are you thinking, nah?" But the blonde abruptly interrupted her. His eyes were full of anger as he gazed at the boy with the utmost hatred, and his voice was cold. "You know nothing," he said, "you know nothing about me or anybody here. What gives you the damn right to say that about any one of us? Is it because you lost your precious daddy? Well, boo fucking who? At least you had a dad. Some people aren't that lucky. Some people have no family whatsoever. Some people had to live on their own from the very beginning, and at night, those people would often wonder where their parents were and why they weren't with them. Don't you fucking cry for your dad. You don't fucking know what it is to have nothing. How would you like living alone without anybody? How would you like being unloved and hated for something you never even did? How would you like being picked on by your peers just because their parents told them to stay away from you? Don't you dare act like you know what it is like to lose everything. Some people would kill to have your life, so be grateful and quit your bitching." The others were left in stunned silence as Naruto slammed the door behind him and rushed out of the house almost instantly after settling into the kitchen corner. Kit rushed outside to join his master. None of the others moved. They were all sitting motionless. Inari's attempt to stop crying was the only sound audible. Tsunami and Tazuna exchanged a perplexed glance. "I'm sorry for Naruto's outburst," Kakashi said to both of them. "Naruto has had a hard life. He's had to grow up on his own. He's never had any friends and he often gets forgotten after all that has happened to him. It's no surprise he would yell at your son." The girls exchanged a pitying glance. They pictured how Naruto must have felt when they completely ignored the blonde in favor of tending to Sasuke out of instinct. They recalled the expression the blonde gave them as he removed the poison from his body. Although the expression was one of rage, Naruto kept a sadness hidden from the girls. Sakura asked her teammates, "Are we just going to let him go?" The two only gave her pathetic glances with both hands clenched into fists. Sasuke was bowing her head and mentally reliving Naruto's tantrum. Sakura asked eagerly, "Hinata?" The Hyuga twitched her thumbs in agony after giving Sakura a nervous glance. Despite her strong desire to leave, her insecurities prevented her from doing so. Sakura became impatient and got up to look for Naruto, saying, "I can't believe you guys." Hands in his pockets, Naruto strolled through the village's streets. He never dared to glance at the other people walking by. Instead, he focused on his feet. Kid was standing right beside his master, watching the onlookers warily for any hint as to what they might do to the blonde. It infuriated the Jinchuriki. He was really agitated by what Inari had said. The fact that a young child was criticizing him when he knew nothing was just annoying, but he shouldn't have allowed it to affect him. It was enough for him. Whoever chose to fuck with him was always pushing him around, neglecting him, and rejecting him. Naruto looked around the stores that lined the streets. As he strolled, he saw a weapons store and ducked away from the crowds. He entered the store and looked at the displays, thinking that maybe it wouldn't hurt to at least go in and take a look. As Naruto observed numerous variations of the generic design, Kunai embellished the space. Others appeared to be as elaborate as they could be, while others were rather plain. He glanced at some of the other displays before his gaze wandered. He wanted to forget about what had happened at Tazuna's house, but he wasn't specifically searching for anything. His gaze swept across the room before settling on an exquisitely beautiful sword. It had a red hilt and was entirely black. Naruto seemed drawn to it because of its beauty. With his gaze fixed on the sword, the store clerk turned to face Naruto. He smiled as he walked toward the display, like a vulture poised to pounce on a lifeless carcass. The clerk, standing beside Naruto, began, "Made from the finest of metals," Naruto continued, pointing to the headband he was wearing. "It was made to be the perfect tool for a ninja. It has a threatening look with a thin and sleek design that will captivate your opponent before killing them." "How much?" the boy inquired, speculating about the potential cost of this exquisite piece. Usually, it would cost about 3,000 Ryu, but since it was imported, Gato has got to tax this pretty steeply. Naruto replied with an encouraging grin. For you. I will try my best to get you the best deal. How about 3,500 Ryu? Naruto had nowhere near that amount, so he could never hope to purchase that amazing, elaborate, and deadly sword. Nevertheless, he had a fox. Kit avoided being caught as he moved between the displays when he needed to steal food to eat. They had done this multiple times before by leading the salesman to other exhibits and asking him about the patterns and capabilities of this particular kunai variant. Naruto diverted his attention. Ah, replied the salesperson, this is a fire swirl kunai. It has a fire chakra infused tip that allows for a detonated incendiary explosion without the hassle of setting up paper bombs. It also explodes on impact with skin and is guaranteed to burn your enemies to the crisp. Naruto gestured to one with a three-pronged tip and asked, and this one? Yes. This is an approximate replica kunai used by the Yellow Flash. Naruto questioned, approximate replica? As Kid began to ascend to the sword display. Well, yes, no one knows exactly what the kunai looks like. Many kunai collectors would give their children to have that kunai. Unfortunately, no one knows how the kunai was even constructed. No plans have been found. As Kid pushed the display open, Naruto kept the clerk's attention on the kunai by asking, what is so special about this kunai? The clerk was obviously displaying his intelligence when he said, according to some reliable sources, the kunai holds the key to the Yellow Flash's movement technique. Before Naruto advanced him to a different design. Kit put the sword in the scabbard next to it after grabbing it with his mouth. Then he dropped down and picked up the sword in its scabbard. Then, while Naruto was busy questioning the clerk, Kit made his way to the exit. Before heading to the exit, Naruto said to the clerk, I'm done. Thank you. Kit bolted out, sword in mouth. As he opened the door, Naruto grinned and waved to the clerk. Naruto removed the sword and scabbard from Kit's mouth and held it in his hand. As he walked back in the direction of Tezuna's house, he decided to give the sword a try. So he went into a wooded area close to Tezuna's house, chose a tree, and began hacking. He felt compelled to use his new weapon to cut something, even though it wasn't really training. Some of the scars on Naruto's body started to hurt, as if the wounds had reopened, and he continued to slash and slash until people's faces flooded his mind. Naruto continued to slash until the tree he was slashing was losing bark. Slashing at the tree was calming to him. After a few more slashes, his rage at the girls for forgetting him vanished along with his anger at Inari. If he cut the tree enough, he pondered, would his rage at the lead be gone? That number of slashes is probably too many for the tree. Use that anger, Naruto, use it to kill all those that stand in your way. Naruto's spine tingled as he halted his unrelenting slashing. He searched but couldn't find anything. Seek me, close your eyes and seek me. Naruto recognized the voice because he had heard it whispering, taunting, and luring him in his dreams. A moment later, there was silence. The blonde Jinchuriki stood motionless, drew in a deep breath, relaxed, and closed his eyes. Very good. When Naruto opened his eyes, he saw a completely different scene in what appeared to be a sewer tunnel. The natural landscape gave way to chilly, urban bricks. Where am I? The boy asked, surveying his surroundings. Welcome to your true home, Naruto. Naruto flinched as the voice echoed and rang out throughout the tunnel. An enormous gate stood directly in front of the boy. It was so huge that Naruto couldn't imagine how anyone could have built it. However, the thought was short-lived because a more urgent issue took precedence. Naruto questioned, I was in the woods, and now I am here. How? You brought yourself here, human. Approach me. Naruto was perplexed. The voice was everywhere. Before the voice spoke again, he glanced around. Approach the gate. Following instructions, Naruto moved in the direction of the enormous gate. Two enormous eyes stared at him. As soon as he started to get close to it, he caught a glimpse of something hideous. The Kyuubi appeared to him. Naruto, I have been watching. I have seen what those villagers have done to you. When his past was brought up, Naruto's hands clenched into fists. The two enormous orbs he was staring at were staring back at him. Release me, Naruto. I will kill every single one of them. Just release me, and you will be avenged. No. The response came almost instantly. Naruto vehemently declined. After the giant eyes widened in rage, Naruto went on, I want to do it myself. A second time, Naruto took the stage and declared, I want them to pay for what they have done to me. Very well, Naruto, but with me sealed inside you, you won't be able to destroy the village. As he recalled the villagers discussing how the Kyuubi almost destroyed the village, Naruto looked at the Kyuubi in confusion. The Yondiami sealed half of my chakra into you, while the other half was sealed into him. I am only half the demon I used to be. Naruto asked, what do I do? He had been preparing to use the power of the thing that was sealed inside of him to level the village ever since he learned about it. You gain allies using any means necessary. Who? Use the Uchiha girl, she too knows the pain that you feel, become friends with her, make her trust you, make her depend on you, then use her to further our goals, then, when she is done, throw her away like the trash she is. What about her friends? How am I supposed to deal with them? Use them as well, use anybody who can further our goal, do anything that you need to. Before he closed his eyes, Naruto gave the fox one final glance. Sakura's throat was lumpy for a week. She hadn't felt this awful since the day she and Ino started competing. She was forced to consider what was going through the blonde boy's mind after witnessing Naruto storm off in that manner and hearing Kakashi's remarks. She considered for the first time how much Naruto's lack of parents and friends troubled him. It was beyond her imagination. She felt a great deal of guilt because she made Naruto feel bad by making fun of him and having such low regard for him. Tazuna wanted nothing more than to stop him and apologize for what she had donia or not donia to him, which is why he left her home. It was odd. She had always believed that Naruto's personality was what made him unlikable and distant, but now that she gave it some serious thought, she realized that her parents had always influenced her perception of Naruto. They were always telling him that he was a terrible criminal and that he had no right to be in the village at all. In retrospect, she saw that she ought to have at least made an effort to be friends with him rather than blindly accepting her parents' word. She walked into the village street and looked around at the people passing by. She peered into the store windows to see where Naruto had gone. But the blonde was not there. He was no longer there. Thinking he might be in the back looking at something, she went into a few stores but couldn't find him. Thinking that Naruto might be examining some tools, she went into the weapons store and noticed that the salesperson was in a panic. He was muttering and pacing, pausing only to glance at the girl before moving on. It was odd to witness businessmen, such as the sales clerk, treat customers with such utter disregard. Sakura approached him in an odd way. The clerk merely gave her a fleeting glance before responding angrily when the girl said, hello." His eyes widened as he saw the headband. "I don't have time for you right now. One of my most precious wares has been stolen," he said. "You," he said scornfully, gesturing to Sakura, "you damn leaf came here and took it." Sakura said tremblingly, "Sir, I have no hide. You ninja took my sword and you didn't pay for it. You ninja are all the same. You take what you want simply because you can kill us. Well, we have lives to live too." He yelled at the young woman, Get out of my store." Sakura decided to return to the house and look for the blonde in the morning after Jiang was pushed out. Naruto. Sakura was standing above him when the blonde opened his eyes. Sitting up, Naruto turned to face the girl. Sakura looked at the blonde with a hint of worry and said, "Thank Kami. I found you, Naruto." Naruto noticed that the scabbard was on the ground and that he still held the sword. When he got to his feet, he picked it up and replaced the sword inside. Sakura asked, glancing at the sword, "Naruto, where did you get that?" Instead of responding, he began to move in the direction of Tazuna's house. Sakura shouted, "Hey, Naruto." As she caught up to him, she then turned to face him, looking a little ashamed, and said, "I am sorry, we forgot about you." Naruto continued on without saying anything to her. Nothing from him was fair to her. "Use her, Naruto." Sakura moved in front of the boy as he momentarily stopped in his tracks. "Naruto?" Sakura asked, her expression bewildered. After saying, "It's nothing, Sakura, it's okay. I forgive you," Naruto resumed his stride. Soon after, the walk back to Tazuna's was peaceful, but they soon reached the house when Naruto realized he had been gone for a day. The air was heavy with the smell of breakfast. After hearing, "Itadakimasu," Sakura opened the door and accompanied Naruto inside. Naruto then slipped past the kitchen and tucked the sword into his knapsack. He didn't want anyone to see it because they would undoubtedly ask him where he went. When Kakashi saw Naruto, he remarked, "Well, if it isn't our little drama queen." Sakura took a seat beside Ino and started to consume the food on her plate. "Hey, are you okay?" Hinata asked, blushing at the sight of the blonde. "I'm fine." Naruto noticed that he had a spot at the table. After looking at it before Kakashi spoke, he gave it a suspicious look. "It's yours, Naruto, we didn't forget you this time," he replied with a grin. "You might want to eat fast. I am going to teach you all something after we are all done." After taking a seat, the boy started to consume the food on his plate, wondering what Kakashi might teach them. He ate with vigor while Shikamaru was napping on the couch. The girls ate leisurely and without hurry. Kid was sleeping, snuggled up in the corner. Whoa, said Kakashi, with a small laugh. "Naruto, eat slowly, I still need to see how the red-eyed sleeping beauty is doing." The girls gave Kakashi a disapproving look, but he just laughed more and went to see Kurenai instead. Still recuperating from the poison the assassin had given her, the female Junin lay in the guest bed. Even though her breathing was less labored than it had been before, it was still obvious that she was unable to accomplish anything useful. Kakashi folded his arms and leaned against the doorway, asking, "You okay?" With a faint reply, Kurenai asked, "Do I look okay, Kakashi?" "Well, I would say you have officially become deadweight." "Ha, thanks," the white-haired Junin casually said, "No problem." As he walked into her room he gazed at her while seated directly beside the bed. "I am going to take them out to learn some chakra control." "No wonder you are such a bad teacher," Kurenai said, glancing at Kakashi for a minute before bursting into laughter. The expression on Kakashi's face made it much more difficult to stop laughing, even though it hurt. Kakashi looked at her and said, Kurenai stood up and turned to face him. "Chakra control is nothing that they couldn't handle with ease. We are facing a threat that demands more from them than just chakra control. Teaching them chakra control isn't going to help them protect Tazuna. How would that be useful if Zabuza simply blinds them with that mist jutsu? You'll need to teach them the basics of chakra sensing to give them a fighting chance." After giving the female Junin's words some thought, Kakashi nodded in agreement. "I'll take your advice with a grain of salt, Kurenai. It might be a bit much to ask, but are you in any condition to oversee their training? What do you think?" The Sharingan user laughed at the glance Kurenai shot Kakashi and left the room, shutting the door behind him. The group was led into a clearing by Kakashi. The clearing was only a small area of land with very few trees. It wasn't very large or much of one for Kakashi's purpose. It was ideal. Taking out 6 kunai, Kakashi threw each one at a different tree, saying, "Okay, this seems good enough." He then turned to face the 6 and remarked, "With the power of chakra, ninja can do the impossible from making clones," he said, glancing at Naruto, who vaguely recalled that he had struggled with that, to climbing up trees. Then, using a kunai, Kakashi ascended the side of one of the trees and then stood motionless to show off his incredible feat. Kakashi jumped right in, saying, "Today, you'll be learning to control your chakra to do the very thing that I just showed you." "How exactly will this help us?" asked Ino, holding up her hand. He murmured, "Chakra control is a necessary part in being a ninja. With chakra control, you can do the most amazing of acts and the most devastating of jutsu with a decent amount of control. You can do more without using any more chakra than you need. This exercise is also very useful in teaching you how to walk on water. In fact, it's almost the exact same thing." Shikamaru searched for the shortest tree he could find and asked, "So all we have to do is get the kunai from the tree?" He wanted to get back to the calm environment as soon as possible because he liked the relaxed way of life that Tazuna and his family appeared to lead at their home. "All you really need to do is focus your chakra into your feet and contain it. If you can do this while moving your feet, you will have passed this exercise," Kakashi remarked, savoring the look the Nara gave him. "Correct, Genius-kun. The sooner you get that kunai from the tree, the more time we have to learn a very important technique that could render that pesky mist jutsu useless if you master it." That really resonated with the genin, and they started working on mastering their chakra right away.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.